Free. Sorry, you could do it.
No, I'm a bad friend. I wanted to play the song. I'm just.
Stop with the ice caps. Save the whales and stale. Keep the starving. No one generational wealth traps and discrimination. Make equality the norm. Fight against oppression. Weather every storm. We have to open the cages. Let the truth flow. Let prisoners go. Set the chimpanzees free. Break down all the barriers. We have to liberate the honeybees. We have to stop the hatred.
Did I get it working? I'm sorry. I didn't warn Chris. I was just like,
open up my eyes.
That's unprofessional.
Constantly gonna be woke instead.
I really like this one.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
My
We
jam.
have to stand for justice, defend every
up?
right, fight against the darkness, bring back the light. We have to share our wealth, no more greed. Heal the world's wounds, plant the seed. We have to teach the children, show them
Basically,
the
the American Psycho speech from Patrick Bateman.
Don't lead them astray.
A little-
We have to
little
spread
Made a song out of it.
the kindness rain.
Oh, there's your song?
Fall and break every chain. Whoa, 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 whoa.
And then he just goes, you think he's saying whoa, 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 but really he's saying woke, 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 woke.
Whoa. We have to end the silence. Let voices be heard. Speak truth to power. Spread the word.
That's from SWAT.
Something changed
I
the
swear to
world.
God, if it was
love
the
the music.
60s, if it was the 60s, I don't know if that's the right genre, but something about those words, you could probably put that in like a conscious hip hop song and it would work just as well. How are you guys doing? How you guys and gals doing? What's
Amen,
up?
brothers.
Awesome.
Dude, Seth, I haven't seen you in such a long time. I want to give you a little like salute here. It's good to see you.
I
Dude,
got my Garfield. I'm wearing my best digs. You got to
I
dress
just
as
had-
weird as you can for Xirtus show.
I just had lasagna, so and I
Oh,
earlier
wow.
said today I don't want to sound like
Shit,
Garfield,
I
but
did
I
too.
love lasagna, and so that's hilarious. It's been a minute because you've had an amazing summer. You know, you've been making all kind of music. You've been working on. We've been doing some music video projects. There's gonna be some amazing art that people are gonna see pretty soon. And
Heck yeah.
I mean, I know it's now September, and you promised that September come, you might come back.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
It's
yeah.
good to see you.
It's getting dark out sooner, you know, so I can get out of the ocean and come back to Xirtus land.
Dude, tell us about the world in the beach land. Is it beautiful there?
You know, I reread or re-listened to all of the Hitchhiker's Guide quadrology, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, so that's been really good. I had a great summer. I went and I saw Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind outdoor at the Ford Theater in
Dude.
LA, and I went to some reggae festivals and stuff, and just having some fun, you know.
Hitting on all, I mean, I know we've been talking, but hitting on several syncs of mine, right? Because, like, yeah, we were just talking about Nausicaa, and the other thing you just mentioned was another one that we were just talking about too, which is pretty funny.
Oh, really? Hitchhiker's
Yeah.
Guide? You were talking about
Hitchhiker's
that?
Guide, yeah. Douglas Adams came
Man,
up.
I forgot how
Man.
beautifully written the fourth one is. It's like one of the best like written love stories. Like I wish Douglas Adams had just sat down and wrote just like a, you know, kind of like a rom-com.
Dude, yeah, I think Restaurant at the Edge of the Universe or Edge of the Galaxy. Which
End
was
of the
that?
world, restaurant at
End
the
of
end of the world.
Is that right? It can't be the end of the world, right?
I swear it was
Need
universe.
that last meal.
Is it universe? Restaurant at the end of the universe?
Maybe it's Mandela
yeah,
effect,
Restaurant at
though.
the End of the Universe.
End
yeah.
of the universe.
Oh, okay, thank God.
Which makes sense because it's, you know, space, right? But I think that one's one of my favorite ones. And I like also the idea of, you know, becoming the Messiah or the prophet because you invent the sandwich. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that happens to people. So it's a nice one.
I think what we need is a cinematic messiah to just finally kill the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That shit has to die so healing could begin.
It's in
What
the
do you-
process
Not
of
to be
healing itself.
Not to be negative. Actually, that was pretty negative, and I 100% meant my negativity in that context. but
Strictly
yeah.
good vibes, bro.
Who do you think
Fuck the
would
MCU.
be? Who would be the person to destroy? Isn't that Deadpool? Isn't Deadpool kind of doing
Galactus.
that? No, because it doesn't have to be a villain, right? It's
Oh,
somebody
I
who
see.
kind of saves the day by like the timeline's getting all frayed.
What if
the
they do
crisis
Lobo
series.
and Lobo World and they turn all the characters into babies and just turn the whole thing into a cartoon and then it just never comes back for another movie?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I used to love the MCU because it introduced like a meta perspective to like movies, not just like a franchise or whatever, but like a whole series of like separate stories, like almost like an anthology, but they're all like loosely connected. They're and until like they come to a major head, like that's a really cool meta cinematic formula. And I thought like
It was great. Like the whole first 10 years of it was pretty much, there was a couple stinkers, Iron Man 2 and Thor 2 and but overall it was kind of like a high watermark for geek culture.
honestly, I'm not hating on this I'm not hating on this movie whatsoever, but one of my favorites because of the sheer hilarity in it was the first Black Panther movie. Like this was a movie about a neoconservative monarch
God, I love
siding
that
with
Right, yeah.
siding with a white CIA
Build the
agent
wall.
to take down like basically an allegory for the Black Lives Matter movement. And I
Yeah,
was
they were
like,
literally like, we have to keep our wall up. We can't allow any immigrants. It's like they
I
hit
was
like
like-
all the beats, but he was the hero somehow.
and what's funny is people ate that shit up. And I was like, this is the kind of movie that would appeal to like really smart conservatives and really dumb liberals. Like both of these ends would fucking love this shit. They would eat this shit up. And I was like, holy crap. They're like, they actually got away with this. They pulled this off flawlessly, I might add. Like trap beats and everything. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like they really did this. It was really good.
Yeah,
though.
but then
I
the
liked it.
second one came along and just kind of canceled out the first one. So I mean, Black Panther 2 is kind of it sort of reflects that shift after Endgame where the quality just dipped substantially and it became more and more oriented towards, I guess, the woke agenda or
I
DEI
just
or
felt
whatever
like
you
the
want to call
problem,
it.
even I don't know. I went to see Black Panther.
Did you see the second one?
Yeah, but like I just
But
want
this
to
is
say when I
Vegas.
went to see the first one, I felt already like they set themselves up for failure by creating a kind of this weird military, like this matriarchal society where war decides, or a one-on-one battle could decide the fate and the stability of Wakanda. And it's like, well, obviously that's not going to work because you can't just have this newarchy of benevolent dictators that are both smart and dashingly handsome and strong. Like eventually there's going to be some trickster or something's going to come along and in the
I think
middle
that's
of
part of
a
the
fair fight.
superhero fantasy though. Like it's going like, oh, the hero is gonna win because he's stronger and he's more righteous.
Yeah,
and
but he should
embodies all
also be
things.
smarter, right? Like
I agree. Like
this is a
as an
Batman
actual
reality.
government idea, it's terrible. But like from a superhero point of view, like it made sense back in that story time when they were inventing that story. But
I don't
now
know. I
it's
mean,
just
I
really-
think already by the time Marvel's doing Black Panther, like DC's Batman is established that Batman is smarter than he is stronger, and that stronger can be outwitted. Like that you can use kryptonite to defeat Superman, and he knows that because he has the Bat computer and all of the. And so really, Batman is the superior superhero.
Oh,
because
yeah,
of his
for sure.
weaknesses. I mean,
Yo, Andreas, can I ask you something?
yeah.
If you had a superpower, what would it be? It could be any superpower, no limits.
BDE.
Omnipotence. I don't know. Wouldn't it just be a god?
It was so funny because
That's what I
someone's
was
like,
thinking.
Mormon powers.
Yeah.
every time you ask that question and someone says like, I'd want the ability to freeze time, everyone looks at you like, we fucking creep. What the fuck?
Yeah,
do you want
right?
freeze
Just
time
touch
for?"
every boob.
I
I want
think-
Wolverine's regeneration 100%. I've got so many injuries and I beat my body up, and now I'm 48. I need some of that rejuvenation.
Dude, yeah, if
Mm.
you're adamantium, that would be
Invulnerability with that though, because the suffering aspect of Wolverine is a lot.
Oh,
I
I can
feel like
take it.
that's
He's
that's
a
the cool
pussy
thing.
about that.
I
I
can
can
Like,
take
you're-
it.
none of the
immortality,
superheroes-
doesn't that just heal yourself and you live forever? Like,
None of the superheroes are happy with their superpowers. Like you get bit by a spider, you end up having
Superman
to
seems
deliver
pretty happy.
pizza. Even Superman. I mean, I don't want to get like Mallrats.
It's the
here.
responsibility aspect that is
Yeah.
a burden,
For
but he's
su-
still
for
happy.
Lois
Superman, it-
Lane is not doing. I don't think. Right?
Well,
Isn't
also,
that kind of? Does he have a kryptonite condom? Do we know? Do we've
Well,
gone this far?
Well, I was gonna say to reference Kill
Just-
Bill, Superman
Is he just
doesn't
shotgun
really.
blast in the cervix?
Superman
Sorry.
doesn't technically have a superpower. Superman, that's just the way he was born. Like that's just that's who he is.
Right. Well, he's
Yeah,
super.
actually,
He's
we're being
superpowers.
racist
He
right
has,
now.
he has
He's
telekinesis.
super-
How else is he flying? He's got no
he-
leverage, nothing to push against. So
Because
the
he
only way he
moved
could
to a
possibly
third-
fly is
he's super-
Because he
moving
moved to a
himself with
third rock
telekinesis.
planet. He moved to
He's
a third
super
world
relative to humans, basically.
He
That's
shoots
all.
Yeah.
lasers out of his eyes.
Yeah, he's got
Laser
some
beams
stuff.
out of his eyes.
Yeah,
So
the
that's
flying
what
is
everybody-
unexplainable.
Wait,
There's no way
wait.
you can just
You know, like,
fly
Everybody can do that
without
with
telekinesis.
Superman at Superman at its
DNA
Superman
that-
at its kind of like distillation is journalists holding corporations accountable. Like Lex Luthor is the corporation, and the superhero is the person denouncing the evils of corruption. Basically, that's why he's a.
I did, Travis.
He's a journalist.
Can't Travis see I'm already here?
Basically.
Well,
It
no, the
must- it
second
must
you
have been a
sent
while
that,
ago.
you arrived. It was
Yeah.
quite.
Thank you, Travis.
Quite
Good job,
sync.
Travis.
Thank you, Travis.
I feel like the Superman moving to a third world planet arc is the thing because he has to disguise himself. People have to be so stupid as to not recognize him. He's living in a world of, it's an Ubermensch amongst Goyim.
Well, then the
let's
whole
just be
world was
real.
stupid because he was Clark Kent and nobody recognized him.
Yeah, but then
Like,
it's like if it's honestly like if Larry David moved to Kansas. I think there's already a movie about that. That's kind
Oh,
of what
man.
Superman is because he's like these people are idiots, right? And
Well,
so I'm a
he's
Superman.
also okay, but he was also brought up by these people. Superman is kind of the embodiment of those Southern Christian values at their best. you know,
Southern
like-
Christian values are really just feudalist serf values, and so the idea of owning property was forbidden by Jews. I like where you're going.
Sure.
So
By the way, have
basically
you guys checked
basically
out,
Superman is Zionism.
Have
Sorry.
you guys checked out the?
Superman is like he's a strange combination of the like he's brought up and takes all the values of humans, but then he also has the higher dimensional version that takes the values of Krypton, which are, depending on the writer, Krypton has values that
Big boy
are
values.
oppressive, or like
Krypton
they're
literally turned over their government to an AI computer that killed them all. I mean, there would have
Well,
been
you
no
guys,
missiles, it
So
wasn't
did
very
we. I
effective.
mean,
Do you
But
guys
speaking
like
of that, you
familiar
guys
with
have got to
Red
check out
Sun, right?
Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Oh, yeah.
The trilogy just
that's
completed.
the
It's
GOAT.
like super high quality, super great.
This is Grant Morrison. No,
Yeah,
I'm thinking of Final
saying
Crisis.
the DC animated universe just put out part 3, and it's like
No,
all
they have
three
an
of them are
animated version of
incredible.
it?
Oh
Incredible.
yeah, of course.
I
But
didn't know
if you
that.
guys,
I've only
they're
seen
incredible.
If
It's-
you guys-
it's
if you guys
so
ever
adult
get-
and hardcore.
my
only-
comics are really
recommendation
good.
is my recommendation is Final Crisis by Grant Morrison. It's one of the greatest comics ever made by far.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, I like
Dude,
that was a
it's
good
hard to keep
age for
up with them.
comics too. I remember, what was amazing to me is like I never I liked comics before the MCU came out. So when it was like a super duper treat, like as a comic book fan, you're like, oh wow, this is really really cool.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, but
But,
then
do you guys-
they excuse too much with the reasoning. They
No,
like they're not the
Lots of-
canon universe, but then they end off
I think
like
the whole
the
point isn't the whole point of canon like extra expanded universes to drive home the point that we hate fringe and that we demand homogenized fascistic order, and that like eventually the audience starts saying that they hate mirror worlds and elseworlds, which used to be
No,
my
it-
favorite
it-
thing. was
no,
like
but the thing is, it doesn't. It's not. The people don't hate Elseworlds. People hate when the Elseworlds are presented as the main universe. They don't. They want the. They want
how
the
else
classic.
are you gonna do it? Like
the
that's what
classic-
you do.
Because you have multiversal story structure integrated into the story. If they wanted diversity, they could literally be like, look, we have the mainline Spider-Man, and then we have a multiversal Spider-Man that is African American or whatever, and it's actually integrated into the story structure. Instead of being like, no, forget about the original version. This is the new female version or whatever. Like you can have both. They can.
I would
both
argue
I
that it
think
kind
that-
of defeats traditional story structure and isn't.
Oh, I
traditional
agree.
story structure.
It does
Like,
defeat-
Postmodernists kind of ruined the comics, which is why they had to do the crises and resolve everything and just be like, these are the Supermen we're keeping. All the other ones are
Yeah,
dead now.
I don't
Sorry
think
about that.
No,
guys."
I agree. But these stories still matter because the multiverse is a way for people to be able to relate on every single level in every layer. It's like they're covering every base of this potential story that could be told, and through that they can create a mythology structure that is literally adapted for every single individual on Earth.
Jenna Ortega says women should have their own franchises. I don't want Jamie Bond.
Yeah,
That's
of
a
course,
good one.
and a woman should
That's a
write
real-
it. I mean, write the freaking
Hell
book.
yeah.
Write a book.
Ah.
There's great
Oh my God.
there's great female writers out there.
Of
So
course.
like, yeah,
It's
make great female characters, make great trans characters, make great African characters. Do it, but don't just go and steal it and be like, oh, it's part of the multiverse, so therefore
Jamie,
it's okay to
yeah.
race swap and
I
gender
want to see
swap.
it bleed, dude.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
see
like.
some real
I think
characters.
a certain.
I can have
There
the
is
surface
the
level
thing.
trans characters. I want to see their lives and how they're imperfect. You know what
True.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want to see them struggle.
that's why I like the new
Sure,
James
wait.
Bond. I like Daniel Craig's James Bond.
Yeah,
I like Tokyo Godfathers. That was great.
Wait. Cyril was gonna say something though. What were you gonna say?
Oh God, I honestly, I'm sorry, I forget. What were we talking about? Just a
We're
second
talking
ago?
about adapting
Multiverse
things,
superheroes.
multiverse superheroes, making characters black and trans and whatever.
Oh yeah, no, because like the woman writer like writing their own version of James Bond.
Yeah.
Like I think most of the time that stuff doesn't like happen is because there's just such an emphasis and this, from the big producer studios, they're like, we don't want to invest in a new thing because people don't go see it. Like we need to invest so much like
sure.
advertising everything, right?
That's totally true. And also,
sure, but then
it's
it's
really
definitely
hard
that.
to create
That's a
good
big
new
layer of it.
characters and to create a whole mythology and world building and all that's really difficult. There's not that many really great authors. So
Do you guys like
It-
Invincible?
I do like what they did with the Spider-Verse, the multiverse.
we can see-
they did make the female Spider-Man, like you were saying,
I think that the movie was a success. The first Into the Spider-Verse was like very difficult script to write because there's so many characters and versions of the same character. So it can be done. You can make but it has to be kind of meta, like winking at itself, So
I
when
really
something is
hope-
meta, to me, that's already not in like Deadpool. To me, is already like an alternate version
So
because if you're breaking the fourth wall, that's like a little bit beyond like a mutant power,
Yo,
That's,
that
like,
better not
almost
become a
you're not in the
trend.
same
Like if
world.
that,
Yeah, that's a
played out.
writing power, basically.
Yeah, like
Right,
that would
yeah.
be that would be horrible if like ancient
Like a-
Hindu Ayurvedic theater became a thing, but it is a thing, right? This is what comes
But it's
up
like
blows my
Deus
mind.
Ex Machina.
Everyone acts like this is something new. This idea of meta, where like the fourth wall is being broken, is the way ancient Hindu plays were always for thousands of years. You have in fact, even in Shakespeare, you have
Yeah,
characters
totally.
Characters are in the audience that are part of the audience, right?
There's narrators on stage in
They
like
need to make-
Midsummer's Night Dream. People come out and explain what the other characters are doing. So it's like, yeah, it's
And it helps you with the
device.
suspension of disbelief because you're like, okay, I'm watching a movie, and so I understand
Right.
at least on that level it's a movie, and then you accept so much more.
But Deadpool
Right.
has a secondary function. He acts as the jester who can tell the king that he's not wearing any clothes. He's actually able to criticize Marvel. He's able to criticize Disney, whereas anyone who's critical of them on the outside will be regarded as
Yeah,
I,
so in a
I view
weird way,
characters
Deadpool's
like
the
that
Messiah.
as like a
Deadpool
debugging
is-
program. Like if there is a problem in the code, a character like that like pops up and starts breaking the
Right.
fourth wall because
But-
like it's worthy of derision. So if you don't get to the point where the product is worthy of derision, you don't get like meta fourth wall breaking characters showing up to like acknowledge to the audience that it's gotten pretty like the writing's gotten bad.
right,
You
and
know,
I
they
think
need to
that's why
make it
people
to a movie.
identify it. That's why people identify so
Is,
much with Deadpool, is because it grants them a chance to actually be within that structure themselves. They can see themselves within
Right.
Deadpool, and then they
But
can,
if he popped up
they
in
can-
Grapes of Wrath, it would be like not appropriate because like the writing's fine. There's nothing to criticize.
Yeah, but if Deadpool traveled across all stories and started, commenting in there, it'd still be
Right.
appropriate for the character. And you might be able to get the insight of a 14-year-old book going, Grapes of Wrath is garbage and it ruined my summer or whatever.
So you guys know what movie the world needs right now? In my opinion, just hit me. Deus Ex.
Oh, that was close. I was gonna say.
What do you think?
I was gonna say the Never-Ending Story 3.
That's like Infinite Jest.
No, dude.
Like every-
Deus Ex, dude. Like if they actually did the original game justice and made it into a movie, like with how everybody's so into conspiracies these days and
No,
everything,
I
like
agree.
it would blow the roof off. It wouldn't even have to be a high budget film, dude. They could just make like a AA film, and people, if they go see it, would love it. It would be amazing.
How do you guys feel about the concept of like a piece of entertainment, like a movie or whatever, that's always changing every time you watch it? I think they already had that concept in like a Black Mirror or whatever.
That's
Well,
just very-
Bandersnatch.
Like Star Wars, George Lucas's Star Wars. Always, every time you watched a new version of it.
Isn't that like these parallels?
I just take a different drug and rewatch the same movies.
I mean,
What do you
that's
say,
it's
Cam?
supposed to be a bad thing, right? I'm sorry, what?
What did Cam say?
In the spirit world, it's like nothing has form. Like it's just constantly evolving. It's like a dream. I mean, that's what dreaming's for, right?
Yeah, but also dreaming uses symbols from your daily wake. So the idea of taking the same story and changing, like mad-libbing it with your daily digested symbols, whatever you've experienced, I think that's a thing that's coming, right? Where
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
want to see.
Have
that
you ever
movie
seen
with
those
that person.
books that like interpret
Pick your own
dreams?
adventure.
Choose your own
Yeah,
adventure.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was thinking
Goosebumps.
of.
Goosebumps was like that.
There was a few
Wow.
goosebumps like that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
used to
well,
read that shit.
Bandersnatch is kind of like that, apparently. Like, pick your own outcome kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was the
that,
Black Mirror
yeah,
episode.
Black
yeah,
Mirror.
Netflix
It's like
is working on, that sort of. They bought all of Facebook's messaging data, and pretty soon they're gonna have like tailor-made content like that is just like for you. Based on, yeah.
it is horrifying. Like imagine watching a movie, right? And a guy's like eating a bag of chips, and knowing you, the viewer, is into some political affiliation or whatever, they'll have like one specific brand, and then if a liberal's watching it, they'll be eating something entirely different, like edamame or some like dried edamame or some shit.
Yeah,
Or
they'll
it's
play
like
both sides.
Yeah, like the paintings will be different for a conservative account watching, whereas for like a more liberal account, they'll watch this movie and they'll see like whatever, like woke shit, I guess they'll call it.
I'd want to go see all of the shit they don't show you, like everything that's not catered to you. I want to see all of the opposite.
What
Anything
do they call
They
it?
just all they do is change the sex scenes. So there's heterosexual sex scenes and gay sex
What do you
scenes.
call that? What, like retroactive
You have to
editing?
pay extra for that. That's like
That might-
super deluxe premium.
So
That might
you,
relate-
so you have to pay extra not to get the gay sex, not to get the sex scenes you don't want.
You know what's
Yeah, I'm
crazy?
gonna pay for that gay sex, dude. I need
This
it.
is this is okay. This is
Oh,
what happened to me.
Sense8, no.
This is what happened to me. I went on Google and I used OpenAI and Gemini, and both of them at this point know who I am pretty well. And I can ask it questions about my YouTube or my website, and it has enough as it knows who I am,
That's
right?
based. Wow. That's cool.
So, but I was like, have you heard of Advanced Philosophy Memes, APM, created by Xirtus? They have a Facebook group. Yes, I am familiar with APM, created by you, Andreas Xirtus. It's great to know you have a Facebook group for it. How has the community been going?
Wow.
I'm like, tell me about the group and what it does. APM is a unique community designed for those with a deep appreciation of philosophy. Unlike typical philosophy meme groups, APM focused on creating and sharing image macros that challenge and engage the intellect of philosophy graduates and enthusiasts. I mean, dang, it knows. The
This is
content
just
in the
jerking
group,
off.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just thank
No,
you,
read it.
AI,
Please continue.
for
Please
listening to me.
continue. I like
No,
it.
this
It's
is
good.
the tension right here.
The content in this
Yeah.
group is curated to provoke thoughtful discussions, offering a sophisticated take on philosophical concepts that go beyond the surface level humor found in more mainstream meme groups. I mean, really, it's true, but it's just amazing. It's a space where members can connect over their shared love for complex and nuanced philosophical ideas,
Is it
all
just
while
your
enjoying a good laugh.
description though? Is this just repeating your description of the group?
No,
Are you
bro.
sure you didn't-
I mean,
Close.
if you read, if it's kind of,
analyzed everything.
Did you not?
it's a little
go-
bit
did you
more
go there?
intense. It's a little bit more intense. It's a little bit more.
So this
like,
is all
Good.
straight
It goes a little
comments.
more accurate. It says enthusiast, not just
Yeah.
gay.
Wait, I got a question. Does all this stuff, can it read our like DMs and our like in our group chats and shit?
Of course.
I mean, I assume it can. I don't know how much
It knows
how
your
to
race.
tell you what it knows.
It
but
takes
I'm sure.
all metadata in.
Yeah.
It knows
So-
everything.
It knows when you wipe your ass.
Yeah. So Pedro, stop it. No, I'm just kidding. But
Only if you have one of those
He doesn't
smart
wipe his ass.
toilets that knows you're wiping your ass.
Hey,
though.
You know
Anyway,
who Pedro
I'll be right
is.
back.
You should ask him that.
APM takes a bold stance against centrism, fostering a space where extreme viewpoints are not just heard but actively engaged with. The group unites heterodox perspectives by encouraging members from all ends of ideological spectrums, whether extreme right wing or far left, including trans, leftist, vegan, socialist, and Marxist authoritarians. I mean, come on.
I disagree. I mean, there's not a bold stance against
Andrew,
centrism.
I am not an authoritarian.
I was going
Like,
to
there's
say a
more
vegan.
centrists in APM than like anywhere else on the web. So.
To participate in free-for-all debates and meme exchanges.
Well,
This
yeah, in
approach
the
creates a
sense
dy-
that it brings it all together.
This approach creates a
Yeah,
dynamic environment where diverse, often conflicting ideas collide, aiming to push the boundaries of philosophical discourse, challenging members to think critically and creatively. God, I love it. It's pretty good. I had a little.
Trans
What
and
was the-
leftist,
what was the prompt for
vegan
that?
socialists.
I decided to ask it like some questions. Like, can you come
Oh,
up with 33 questions? I've got some questions. This is our new first questionnaire, the APM
Wow.
questionnaire.
Wow.
All right. So the first question I'm going to ask you guys:
Who are the
hate
vegan
speech-
socialists?
Andrew.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
what up,
Socialism
really?
is,
I'm
sorry.
is a stepping stone.
I'm
It's-
sorry,
Andrew,
Andreas.
Andrew is a union member,
Pedro.
so I'm just gonna point that out.
Pedro. It's Pedro.
All right, what are you saying, Andreas, about hate speech?
What's the
What's the
question?
first
8 p.m.
question?
at ChatGPT came up with 33 questions it wanted to ask you all, and I thought these were good ones. The first question was, can hate speech ever be justified in the pursuit of truth, or is it inherently destructive?
No, because it's
Show us the
hateful.
results.
It's not truthful. It's just inspired by hate.
That's it.
I
Hate
would
is an
say there's no
emotion.
there's
One
no
at a
such
time,
thing as
Billy.
hate
Emotion.
speech. I
It's
think the
better than
question is
repressing
flawed.
it. It's better than repressing it.
I think I'm gonna have to step out of the
Right.
ring for a second.
Authenticity is better, of course.
Yeah, I agree.
I
I think
prefer-
repression.
One thing
Hey,
that's important
James.
That's
to
not
get
Putin.
like people's
Hey.
Sucks.
hate
I'm
speech,
Bernie,
quote unquote,
I'll bring you
because
right
when
back,
you get
Bernie.
their
Oh, yeah,
hate
no
speech,
worries.
never mind.
If you don't allow
Hey.
hate speech, it just
I'm still
it
here.
comes out in different forms, like physically. Like you have to allow it.
Just for a minute.
Yeah,
Like
you can't
people would
suppress
call it
things.
hate speech, but I wouldn't necessarily call it hate speech. But I think when people do express more angry opinions about
Yeah.
things, what it does is it exposes what people are thinking that they don't say to people. It's like the shocking thing, and it gives people a map. That's my opinion. I think it's important. It's just not when people glom onto it.
It's healthy.
I think there's a difference between offensive speech and hate speech, and that line is very, very hard for people to distinguish because they have an emotional reaction to the things they're offended by, and they regard it as hatred. And of course, there's people who do say hateful things, but there's people who literally will just state facts, and then someone will proclaim it hate speech, and it's just the act of expressing that offensive fact will be
Misconstrued.
regarded as hate.
Well,
So-
to bounce off
So
that,
I think the moment that it becomes truth, it stops being regarded as hate speech unless you're trying to slander the truth.
I look at like angry speech as like a brass knuckles, and hate speech as like a knife. You know, sometimes you need brass knuckles, and sometimes you need a knife, and you know you don't want to be without it and need it, as
Or a
opposed to
scalpel.
like.
Yeah, but
Not
the thing is that
needed.
weaponizing hatred makes you stupid because hatred is an emotional thing that
No, I'm not
makes
talking
you
about. I'm not talking
irrational.
about weapon. I'm not talking about weaponizing. I'm talking about tools. You know, these are tools.
But you're literally
not-
talking about you're comparing them to weapons because you're talking about weaponizing.
Well, weapons. I think weapons fall under the category of tools. You know, weapons are.
Yeah,
tools
yeah,
that
no,
we
I
use
don't
for-
disagree with that. But I said weaponized because that's what they end off as a tool for. We use hate speech to in verbal combat against those we disagree with in order to gaslight them or slander them or
Well, first of all,
or
I
even
think.
accurately reflect that they're being hateful.
I mean,
A
I
hammer
do think
could be
there's like
used for
a.
many different things.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
I think there's like a meta intention game, you know, with like no matter what you say, whether you say something incredibly hateful or incredibly loving, your intention really is what determines whether it ends up in very destructive or very constructive outcomes. So I really think it's like once you know that, you can't like people aren't going to reach that state of like meta understanding with word games if they're locked into like, oh, you can't say this, you can't use this kind of speech, you can't use this
Yeah.
frequency of like word expression. It's like, no, you got to give people access to all of it. First of all, words don't really kill us. I mean, they hurt us, wound us deeply, but they don't like stop us from like eating our next meal or like getting a good night's sleep at the
I
end
don't
of the
know.
day.
There are
Like,
definitely anorexic and bulimic people that have been driven to that through words from their mother or from I mean, I think that not just words but also other things involved.
sure. But the thing is that you can process words, you can't process a knife. You know, so words, even if they can hurt you, they're
Right, yeah.
not the same
I'd
thing
agree
as
with that. There's an
Yeah.
absolute speech is not violence by definition, and like with philosophy, there's an order of operation. So first you try to divine the principle, and if you can't divine the principle, then you have to draw a line somewhere. You know what I mean? So if you're like speech is speech up to here, then we put the line, then it's hate speech. That act of putting the line exposes that you're not clear on the principle. To me, I'm very clear on the principle. All speech is fine. People can speak. They can say whatever they want. It's harmless, and people need to learn how to process it. You know.
I
and,
agree. I agree because like, what stops me from like, let's say like I'm losing the debate and then that's hate speech. Like right when I'm losing the debate.
Right. It's
No.
like a legal tactic. And actually
Yeah,
the term
because-
hate speech was first created as a legal designation to constrain the First
That's not
Amendment.
cool.
So I'm totally against even acknowledging that the term exists. When people bring it
Yeah.
up, I'm like, what is that? Can you explain it? And then they can't explain it. I'm like, let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
I think
hate
what's
speech is
becomes hate
defined
speech.
as a term of varied meaning with no single consistent definition. That is the wiki.
It's defined as no definition.
Wow.
Great.
Has no single
Jesus
consistent
Christ.
definition. Right.
Yeah, it's like Kafka's The Trial. You know, it's like you've been found guilty of what crime? Like we don't have to tell you, but you're guilty of it.
Cambridge Dictionary
Just so
says
we have a
public speech
problem.
that expresses hate or encourages violence towards a person or group based on something such as race, religion, sex, or
Doesn't
sexual
repression
orientation.
encourage more violence?
Yeah,
though?
that's
Like,
excitement, though.
bullying?
Of course, yeah.
So in other words, like hate speech, like the Bible is hate speech, you know, like because it says like to do this and don't do that, and like basic, you know, it seems like a lot of things would be hate speech.
All right, we got 33 of these, man. What's the next one?
I mean,
Alright.
the word no can be considered hate speech, right? If someone comes up to you and asks you, it's like, oh, do you believe I don't know, like some ethnicity should have rights, and you just have to say no, and that's like hate speech.
I
you
agree
know?
with that. I think that's like the main thing I wanted to emphasize is that hate speech is disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
It could easily just be that, and then people having feelings, maybe feelings associated with speech at all.
People
why I
hate,
like the
people hate
phobic,
the speech.
uh,
The speech is not hate.
The dysfunction is with the receiver of the speech. Like whatever anyone says in front of me, like I'm not going to like absorb like hatred. Like nothing's going to happen.
Well, if someone tries to insult me or offend me directly, like that's fine. But it's not the same thing as hate speech, and we seem to just be like we come up with these power words like hate speech as a means to really control discourse, and that's the end game. It's about regulation through shame, through basically virtue signaling. Like I don't use hate speech. I'm against hate speech. Therefore, anything I say can't be hate speech. But what you say is automatically hate speech.
I think shaming and shunning is a totally natural and appropriate way to deal with it. When you get the government involved and when you get the courts involved, you know, then you just have like a nuclear weapon to end any conversation.
Right. But that's the thing. Shaming, if government like sanction become a psyop. Like it becomes something to control.
That's the concern about public shaming, and I saw that as something that people were suggesting. Like we need to bring back public shaming, and I don't know if that's the answer.
Not a good energy either, but
some consequences. So
well, here's a good boundary, right?
You mean like burning flags? Like
I mean, I think
like
shunning is fine if somebody's just talking a whole bunch of crap, and you're just like, we don't want to hang out with that guy, you know. And that's why
I blocked Daryl. It's just at some point, like you have free speech, just keep it away from me. You know, like say what you want, but I don't have to hear it if I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, then again, it's interesting that you can never close your ears. You know what I mean? So it's
all right. So I'll give you a scenario.
That's why I have headphones.
So I'll give you a scenario, right? Suppose you have to draw a boundary between actively harming someone or like literally protecting your space, protecting your energy, basically drawing boundaries. Like if someone starts like saying some really obscene or rude things to you, just sitting there taking it's going to negatively affect you. It's going to affect your self-esteem. It's going to affect your ability to process things. Like it's not good energy for you to like have around you. So like you got to say what you have to say that's going to get that person away from you, and it's going to vary in degree depending on the person you're dealing with. So like so what I would say is like you can't police the words themselves, because you need those tools to draw boundaries just as much as like you want to know what not to say to hurt someone. Because like, you know, that's the idea, right? Like if you go back to like spiritual beliefs, like if you believe that everyone's the same soul, you don't want to hurt anyone, because to hurt them is to hurt you, right? So you don't want to hurt them. But there's people out there that don't get that, and they will cross your boundaries and do things that'll like affect you negatively. It'll compromise you. You know, maybe just being around them will make you make bad decisions, you know, and shit like that. So that's when you have to use words to wound someone enough so they just get the fuck like away from you. You know, like I think that's really necessary.
That's like a warning. That's like animals in the wild who are like there's boundaries that they set, and then if another animal crosses those boundaries, then they go like roar, fuck off, and then that thing fucks off, or it doesn't heed the warning and a fight starts, you know.
And the way to take power out of that is to turn it into play. Like friends can roast each other, but like if you're not friends, you can't like cut as deep and it be turned or like transmuted into humor, you know. And that's a really powerful tool to sort of like take power away from hatred, essentially, or the hatred aspect of it is to
I think the acknowledgement of our mutual flaws makes us more relatable to each other. And when you're able to be like, hey, you got a funny nose, oh, you got a funny chin or whatever, like, okay, we're both funny, you know, like let's laugh instead of being
video is gonna kill, like, 'cause, like a lot of the hate I see is through like literary communication. So if things are through more interpersonal communication, do you think that's going to kill as much of the hate speech idea if people are more, I mean, personified,
like webcam, like YouTube personas and these sort of people?
Right. Like I already noticed that the interactions we have in our videos seem more cordial than
Yeah.
you might think by just looking
I
at
think
a
being
Facebook
mean
group.
is only popular in text, like, or if you're just a talking head and you don't interact with other people.
Yeah.
But if you're a talking head who's mean, like, I won't even name the people, but there's some popular one, and they're only speaking to their audience. As soon as they
Rosie
go split screen
O'Donnell,
with,
you can say
as soon
it.
as they go split screen with anyone else, they automatically get more civil. You know what I mean? Because they're like, this is not going to hold up well in this context
Right.
of the person's.
But for me,
actually
that
there.
that makes sense
Yeah, because it
because
ends the
like
conversation.
there's both like objective and subjective value to like it's basically a power game. You know, if you have like discrepancies with someone, and that's all material based, right? Like we have to have these because we're all trying to like have enough resources for us to live at least. And some people are greedier. Some people
Okay,
want even
okay,
more.
But there's a difference though, because when we're interacting face to face, the consequences of our interactions are different. At any point, I could, if someone says something, I could start yelling at them and swearing at them and like making noise so annoying that like it'll literally make them uncomfortable. If I just write words, they can literally be like, okay, well, fuck this guy, I'm not reading that, and then that's it, you know. So the actual like the consent is different between written and speech, because the way that we interact with each other is different. We can't see each other's faces online, so there's like an NPC almost effect that occurs where like we're so disconnected that it's almost like we're discussing with something that is barely even real, that is
Question
barely
number 2:
relatable.
What role does satire play in political discourse, and
This
when
goes
does
back to
it
what
cross the line?
Andrew-
I think that's
Andrew
satire
talked
is
about
that Deadpool role.
And when
Sat-
does it cross the
satire-
line into harmful rhetoric?
No,
Satire
Andrew said
allows
that
us-
humor.
Sorry, go on.
Humor was a good tool, right? That's what you're saying, Andrew. Right?
Yeah.
You were,
Yeah.
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 It's the supreme diplomat after sex.
But when does satire become harmful rhetoric?
I don't think
Rhetoric
it
is never
when you don't
harmful
get it.
by definition.
I think-
There's no such
I
thing as
think-
rhetoric.
Propaganda maybe, but when satire gets pushed to the boundaries and turned into something ideological or for a certain agenda as opposed to commentary, like it's like if the jester stopped telling the emperor he had no clothes and instead started shaming the crowd, you know, like
I think it's self-destructive more than anything. I think when you lean too far into satire to like, or humor even to cope, it's not really going to harm others. It's like, that's the jesters or the clowns like curse, right? It's like everyone gets to laugh at your expense. And that's really the cost of satire. It feels safe because you're like, I'm not hurting anyone by making jokes, by making light of the situation. But ultimately it does kind of harm you because you're like doing the equivalent of like hiding under a rock. You know,
Also,
so when you-
manipulation is different than harming someone directly. I mean, you don't have
But
to
there's-
harm someone to lead someone to jump off a bridge. And I know that that's not
Absolutely.
fair.
you know,
but
this is one of the thing is it has multiple effects, right? Like satire can both be harmful and positive. It can for one as well, you know. And so like the idea that satire is harmless, like I think is kind of romanticizing it, because of course, like if I make a bunch of mean jokes about a certain demographic, other people will be like, well, that's just true, or it's on face value because they're ignorant, and these jokes are like fourth degree or whatever. While
Wait,
in
I'm sorry,
Sometimes
are
humor
there-
is the only defense we have against, hegemony,
I agree.
and it's kind of an odd move when those sources get purchased by those established entities to then use humor to reestablish it.
Mhm.
I think that's something that people don't really talk about with humor.
I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are there really like 33 of these questions?
Yeah.
All right.
Is that a Masonic thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be 33 this month, so this is my fucking
shoot.
Masonic year, bro.
There you
This is
You're
my
you're in
of-
your Christ year right now.
this is my
What-
ascension year,
Okay.
yeah.
I would just
How
say
do-
about satire that I don't know the actual definition, but satire means to make light of a subject. So if you're actually making, if it's dark, it's not satire. So
Satire is
and
Luciferian.
Norm Macdonald said, I don't know about that.
My boy Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald said that to impersonate someone, you have to like them or at least humanize them. So he was referring to a lot of people doing impressions of Trump that just aren't funny on the face of them, and you get clapter instead of laughter when people go woo. woo instead of laughing, which is like a natural reaction. It's like a forced reaction. So you to accurately impersonate someone or entertainingly impersonate them, you actually have to humanize them. You can't dehumanize them while you're impersonating them.
Well, it's like Zizek was saying, you know, like when he's interacting with his compatriot, with people from other countries, they insult each other and then they get on to actual discourse with each other. And it's like comedy acts as, like, comedy, like I said, it can have negative effect, but at the same time can have like long-term positive
Bro,
effect.
but you're making fun of my people. You're making fun of my
The thing is that talking, like, if you're making fun of people, you're at least including them in the discussion in some form. While not talking about them at all is more harmful than making fun of them can actually be.
Shout out to the Lithuanians. You know what the Lithuanians are up to right now.
They got some hot ass girls in Lithuania.
Like, we should make a lot of Tartaria jokes so that, you know, people actually, so it becomes relevant.
If you're from Luxembourg, call me. I'm gonna do all the L countries right now.
Dave Chappelle.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle did more for.
Sorry, go on.
Go.
Like satire.
Dave
when he
Chappelle.
Hold on.
Contributed.
Wait,
Hi
here you go.
everyone. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Satire is really awesome when done correctly. But like, so like we had the Olympics, and we had Raygun. Yeah, go Raygun. She, you know, the breakdancer. Yeah, the breakdancer that was just like laughably like awful in
I don't know
comparison.
if I call her breakdancer.
But,
and kind of arousing, right? Like, don't you kind of
exactly. It was nice, but
Raygun's hot.
Yeah, it was like
creative.
I took that dancing as like a form of trolling. I can't confirm that. Like, I don't know. I still think it could be trolling. But then you see like all these like late night shows like trying to mimic it, like almost as if it were satire. But I'm like, at that level, like what point in the, I don't know, on the Xerox machine are you that you're making fun of someone that looked like they were making fun of something else? You know, it looked just like pathetic and sad and lazy. It's like, that's where, well, I'm sorry for bringing up late night as an example of comedy. It clearly isn't anymore, but it's like, that's how low the bar is. Yeah, it's like you have to be pointed with your satire in order to like, well, actually make a point and actually create change. It can be a great catalyst for change, but sometimes it's lazy if done incorrectly, and it's like, it leaves people this feeling of where do we go? Like, you wouldn't go to the Special Olympics and start making fun of people. You don't satirize it because it's like there's nothing to satirize. And so that's an interesting point, I guess. I don't know.
Raygun has a geometric value of 728, which is in end of his doubt of God and Led Zeppelin, as well as Zionism, transhumanism. God is insulted. That's probably the one. I don't know.
She was clearly making a mockery of breakdancing.
Well,
like,
actually,
I think she
you know
was
what?
totally intentionally doing that.
I thought that until I started looking into her, and then I realized, like, no, this could.
She's an aficionado that started trying to do it in her 30s,
Yeah.
and it just so happens that her husband is on the selection committee.
Educated white people exist, and they are terrifying.
I'm really into like the whole b-boying thing, and I stay present. With,
All right,
well,
I just
used to
ask.
b-boy, now I'm an aficionado, but yeah, the girl that she beat in the Australian finals, Holy Molly, is like really good world-class b-girl. So there's no way that was like fair judgment.
So question. Is this what are we gonna call this? Is this Raygun Gate or breakdance gate?
No, there was an agenda to because it was the first breakdancing ever, and so clearly she was positioned in there to get all of the focus to take like breakdancing.
I hope it's
and make
Olympic
it
Gate.
ridiculous.
Olympic Gate would be like the goal.
It's really sad because this is the first time breaking was ever in the Olympics, and it's not slated for, not because of what happened with Reagan, but it wasn't slated for 2028 in LA, and it's not slated for 2032 in Brisbane. And all the people remember about it, like, and this is why I hate topical humor, because it's so shallow. Like, people go like, they just see a thing and they're like, what's my knee-jerk joke to that? And it's like, they don't know anything about the topic. It's not like an intelligent satire or anything like that. So I just hate that that's the takeaway on breaking culture after all these years to get to the Olympics.
I used to break when I was young.
Yeah, B-girl Ami won. B-girl, like, show the one that got the gold medal. Like, she's one of the best B-girls in the world and wins all these.
Yeah, I didn't even see a single reel. I didn't see a single
exactly.
reel
That's so
of any
sad
of the winners
for me.
pop
That's,
up
that's
on
gonna
my
stick
feed.
in my
Like,
craw.
The only way to fix this
Yeah.
is to execute ray gun. You know, like, that's the only way.
She's gotten, you know, she's
You're
gotten
literally
it
not
pretty
allowed
hard,
to
man.
say that. Oh my god!
With
But
laser
imagine,
beams,
imagine
some
the,
other way.
the lack
I'm sorry,
of
in
self-awareness.
Minecraft.
that she thought-
I'm talking
In
about the
Minecraft.
video game Minecraft.
Game.
Yeah, I think you meant
Imagine
like
the lack of
move,
self-awareness
the ray
that she
gun
thought
move.
people were gonna like support her because she's like loves this and is into it. It's like, no, you stole someone's spot at the Olympics. Like, it's not cool.
You know, they
kind of like
say
she
that
sold
history's the
someone's
worst.
culture to dance. I don't know. So 3, how do
Counter argument here.
Okay.
It's worth saying that like 50%, that's a bad number, but 50% of the Olympics are all subjectively judged. Like there's
more
nothing
than
you can
that.
say
80 to
like oh, he
90%.
did a triple head spin. There, like, there's,
95.
like none of that going on. I'm not defending. I'm saying like our whole conception of placing any importance rather than entertainment
Olympic
into
Gate.
sports, it's
Olympic
like completely stupid. It's like
Well-
stupid to get mad about something that's completely made up.
I would agree that it's like if you have
I
like
was,
if you have like a counterculture thing like b-boying, it's a stupid desire to want it to be in the Olympics so everyone will acknowledge it. And that's how I always wanted, because everyone is like, oh, we got to get it into the Olympics so the whole world will see. And it's like, no, screw the whole world. Like, this is what happens when you try to do that. Like, keep it counterculture, keep it on the streets,
But
and
if,
like it's
if
fine.
they
you know?
can, if ballet is in, I think breaking should be too, and,
And
probably
artistic gymnastics and ice skating and heavy judging.
wrestling, like American style fake wrestling,
Pro
that should
wrestling.
be- pro wrestling should
Love to
be
see it.
in the Olympics as well, because that is a dancing art form that
Yeah,
requires
for God's sake.
collaboration. It's really
Figure skating.
training.
They've been pushing. Chris Jericho's been pushing hard for that too.
If-
But I
if
think it's
twin-
like this.
if
It's a
twin
personality
diving-
flaw to want everything to go
We
to the
should put
Olympics. Like,
mimes
just
to the
enjoy your thing
Olympics
the way it
too.
is.
Dude, if twin diving's in the Olympics, then I think pro wrestling should be okay.
They should
3,
put shit posting in the Olympics.
How do extreme ideologies shape identity? How can they ever coexist peacefully?
Read it again.
Wait, what was it?
Wait,
How
what?
do extreme ideologies shape identity, and how can they ever coexist peacefully?
Spirituality.
I mean, people can think and believe in whatever they want, but how that plays out in their day-to-day life and the actions that they take are two totally different things. And I think you see that in every philosophical subculture. People will talk a big game and then, you know, not really practice what they preach. So I think ideology does have the potential to shape identity. Yeah, of course, there's always the potential for differing beliefs to coexist peacefully, but it's up, you know, it's the problem is choice and free will, if that exists.
How much is identity shaping the opposite of, you know, like
A lot of it's
shaping the
reactionary,
opposite?
which is the problem. A lot of
Right,
people's
just like-
idea and identity is a reaction to shit around them.
Well, that's what.
a
Look,
lot of
that's
the
the
time
thing.
ideology is like going along to get along. It becomes like it can definitely, but I mean, when you're a teenager, of course, like there's different like vibes you can go into and different subcultures and stuff like that. It's definitely like a way to explore more about who you are, but you can definitely pigeonhole yourself in. That's my
Jack,
take.
hit me back when you're no longer beeping. It's killing me.
Well,
Oh shit!
I
I'm
like
sorry. I'm
punk,
like
for
too close to
example.
this track.
well, I was gonna say the beautiful thing about what you guys just said is that, like, you know how like you're just reacting to things. I say all the time, you can't control what happens to you. You cannot. That's impossible. You cannot fucking do that. People live day to day thinking, oh, if I just get enough money, if I get the right job, if I just, you know, get in the right relationship, I can control what. No, you can never control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That's the only thing you're in control of. So the fact is, like, the way you put that, it's like, oh yeah, our identities are mostly just all like based on reactions, it's all reactionary. But yeah, that's true. So if we consciously react to things, it's no longer reacting, then it's responding. And we understand it's like, oh shit, you know, I really can't control the shit that was thrown at me, but I can control how I respond to it. And it turns out that's the only fucking thing we can control to a degree. You know, like, it's true.
Yeah, I also think the only reason like people want representation, right? I don't really understand why, you know, like when I first heard that, it's like, you know, like white people get all the representation. It's like do you just want the like marketing to like have your face on it, you know? Like that's like you know, like I think you kind of are your own representation if you're showing up to town hall meetings, you know, you're voting, you like in the political world, your participation is your representation, you know? And I think the desire to have like culture represent you, um, whatever that means. Sorry.
Who's beeping? Oh, it's
I
you.
think that, you know, like, but wanting representation is fine, and I totally understand it. The problem I have is when people go, "Why aren't your creations and your stories about us and about me?" Instead of just making their own stories, which was always what happened before. People would just be like, "Look, the thing that I seek in culture doesn't exist." And then they're compelled to create it. That's how creativity.
A lot of it is people, like you said, people that are reacting to, like, let's say your people were killed by another people, and that's what defines your people, or you've been enslaved by another people, and that's what defines your people, or your people starved in a famine. So a lot of these things really are, people want to be heard for having suffered, or have this abstraction of that their people suffered, and that's the justification for why they're not doing well and able to realize their own dreams. And
well, it's super important for them to. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say there might be, like, at this point, a lot of demographics. Like, there's a lot of aisles in the Walmart, so there might be one for you and for her and for him. But that doesn't mean that they're intersecting the same way. There's not.
Don't make all aisles the same aisle. You know.
Well, to like make them all get along, right? That's like interesting. That's like a political social function, right? It's better to just not discuss these things and like force everyone to accept you, with some caveats. But like the kind of what you're saying, Andreas, is like historical correction. I agree with that. I really think that there's like, it's like the people's history of the United States, right? Like people, I don't know. There's like some major corrections to history that probably should happen, but
yeah, we don't get enough people's direct experience though. We just have them using a proxy of their group for like whatever they're supposed to have been experiencing, but we're hearing less and less direct examples from people's lives, so we can actually relate and like make a correction.
Yeah, like I feel like the whole point, like ChatGPT is even saying that the APM group's function is all of the things are jammed together. That people are, minorities in this group, but they're all minorities because the group is made up of people from the extremes of all of these groups, right?
We're all freaks.
And so that's not always harmful. But also the next question is there a moral obligation to engage or promote viewpoints you find abhorrent, or is it better to ignore them?
Well, so this brings up the answer I was trying to say about, I think, the original question is, all of this relates to rhetoric, right? Do you guys understand the difference between rhetoric and dialectic?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, define it though. I think that'd be a good definition.
Yes.
Yeah, break it down for the audience, please.
Yeah. So rhetoric. I mean, you could.
Rhetoric is artful. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, if you want to say
rhetoric is artful speech, and dialectic is direct speech. It's
Well-
the simplest way to say it.
Well, so I would say it differently, right? So if you read the Gorgias, it's basically Socrates like debating with the like leading student of like a really well-known rhetorician, right? And the points that he makes are basically that rhetoric is convincing power, right? And so one positive thing that he brings up about it is that the rhetorician has more convincing power to convince somebody to take the bitter medicine than the physician or the doctor does, right? And then he goes on to dialogue about this, basically asking like, is that a good thing? And essentially he says no in the end, because it's not by virtue of understanding medicine that the rhetorician is able to convince the person to take the medicine, right? So the convincing power in his hands can easily go against the health of the person. as opposed to it being in the hands of the doctor himself, who understands why
Right.
to take the medicine, right?
Like informed consent from the doctor directly.
Right. And so I'm trying to think of the fellow's name, but I mean Socrates basically just spanks the guy. And you know, and it turns out in the end, what's better than convincing power, like rhetoric versus rhetoric, that's like, you know, that's like power versus power.
Right. All of Plato's dialogues were usually were fictional conversations of his teacher Socrates versus whoever, and usually the whoever person would just usually agree to keep the conversation moving. Socrates would ask questions, but Socrates wasn't a rhetorician. Socrates actually used extremely direct speech, and there's so I would say that rhetoric it's artful speech designed for persuasion, but not all.
Persuading power, right?
It's persuading power, but also direct speech. Socrates was using rhetoric, but in a way that kind of exposes the machinery of it as he's doing it. So it's kind of giving the person the answer key, like you're almost telling you're persuading the person at the same time you're showing them how you're persuading them, but that almost gives it more power because it's like an honest form of rhetoric.
I'm sorry, James.
James.
Synthesizing.
It was the other way around, actually. Just to correct this, that Socrates himself was not the rhetorician. He actually.
I understand that, but like if you read any quotes of Socrates, they're extremely artful and persuasive. You know what I mean? But they're also sorry.
Can I also?
So it's like
I just want to say. I want to interject. I just want to say. I want to interject. I was going to say like. When it comes to what you guys said about persuading power, that was really interesting to me because, in my opinion, like I was talking about this with Andreas before, like when we were talking about semen retention and how like just fucking around with
That's
it.
That's the segue. All right.
No, just listen. No, listen.
This is what you're cutting in with your semen retention.
No. Listen. This is just one example. This is one example.
I swear.
This is one example.
Your pants, bro.
Listen. This is one example. Anyway, this is one example, right? So I tried it, and as a result, I quit porn. All right, short and simple. But I was also I was talking to Andreas about how like, you know, there's people now after I've tried it and done it and quit porn consumption. It's like people would tell me what to do, what to think, what to believe. And I'm like, why would I listen to you if you can't even stop this? Why would I listen to you if you can't even quit porn? Like, why would I listen to you if you can't quit jacking off to porn every day? Like, you don't even have like full mastery over something that's actually fully in your control. And this is what I'm talking about, persuasion power. Because until you actually do something, commit to it, then you could embody the effects of committing to your fucking beliefs and actually mastering your beliefs. That gives you persuasion power. You could use as many words as you want, but it goes back to like, if you don't practice
that's
you
credibility, right? What you're talking about is
like the Socrates Trump of
we're all doing. I just want to make the point that we're all doing rhetoric right now. So like to bring it back, what you're going into is the rhetoric why one thing is better than the other. But if we together as a group start asking
forming a dialectic,
like why is it better, then we start to realize like things that we didn't know that we knew, right? And we stop at every point and find out where we disagree, and then we break off into defining terms there and discussing that. And then we actually sometimes find out that getting rid of linguistic confusion, that we actually do agree on things that are good, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the example of Socrates is that he's going through asking questions that like, do you agree at this point and this point? And the point of the dialogues being so short, like the answer is so short, you can see that in the dialogues he says, and you know, and please keep your response short, right? Socrates is constantly saying that, like, you know, like tell me if you agree with this, but also keep it short, because he's trying to show the like tree of logic,
right? It's not a debate. He's trying to convince. So it's more like he's making a presentation rather than like
I mean,
an
you
actual.
start by taking someone's
Again-
rhetoric that they believe in, and then you give them a dialectic that breaks their rhetoric, and then it forces them to reanalyze and come up with new rhetoric, and that's the best you can do.
It's
probably,
like a
especially when it doesn't-
deprogramming process, but at the end of it, Socrates' famous quote is, "I know now that I know as much as any man because I know nothing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after having all of this was Plato's writing. I mean, Socrates didn't write any of this down, so this is actually all of Plato's thought. You know what I mean? Like Plato is the one writing the dialogue.
So
But-
the quote is actually really interesting when like you get it accurate. He never said like I don't know that I don't or I know nothing necessarily. What the context of that quote was regarding double ignorance, right? So he says I do not whereas they do not know and think that they know.
Right.
I do not know, but
I know that I don't know. Right. Yeah. But I'm saying he has nothing positive. He had no affirmation to replace misunderstandings with. He was dispelling misunderstandings. But the point of my opinion of Socrates is his whole mission in dispelling misunderstandings is to get everyone on the same page. Like we need to start building any positive affirmative understanding because we don't have any at this point. We managed to function as this great Greek society and nobody knows anything, including him. So he's like, if we can all get on the same page and dispelling the fact that we pretend we know what we're doing, we don't know anything, then we can together evolve.
2,000 years later, we still can't agree on anything. So
it might
not
not
like most arguments. Most problems are semantic. People just disagree with definitions, and that's the root cause in most of it. When one person says something like, I don't know, I'm against racism, another person will just have another definition of racism in their head, and they'll both be against racism in their own heads, but the two definitions just don't align.
What causes the discussion and the disagreements to prolong is not being able to like argue, like suppressing free speech. So we should stop.
Well, like there's cognitive dissonance, which is a huge factor in all this because there's literally like a blockage that happens when people's axioms are challenged. They literally cannot process the information that you present to them that conflicts very, very deeply with their preconceptions about the world and how it's structured. So when we can't, semantics is the root of the problem, but we can't actually address it because it's the fundamental structure of people's beliefs that are being challenged when we challenge definitions.
And the most fundamental belief is the belief that you are your intellect. So, and the way you demonstrate your intellect is through knowledge. So if you're able to undercut all of somebody's knowledge, you know what I mean? You basically, it's kind of like not a nice thing to do, but that's like an ego destruction. The person's like, wait a minute,
right?
Like if I don't know anything, then I'm not as smart, because you.
Well, that's why gaslighting is so powerful. Is because you're able to just invalidate what everyone says because it doesn't fit your axioms.
And it's not a sport like where you can tell if you're boxing, you know who won because the other guy's unconscious. You know what I mean? Like with an argument, 20 people could watch and disagree on who won, and the person who lost could think that they won. So it's like a very frustrating thing, but most people equate themselves with intelligence. So like the loss of an argument is like a destruction of a piece of yourself, which is a really dishonest way and not a useful way to engage in conversation.
This is why I think,
and it's hard not to fall into it. Even me, when I'm on the screen like this, like I don't want to say something wrong. Like I'm not super stoked with my definition of rhetoric and dialectic. Like as Rasputin was speaking, I was like, wait a minute, that was like an idiot definition of that. And that's like a topic that I super care about. So as that was happening, I was like, man,
I think it's like the noble Tao is not. It's
very hard
fair.
to like open
the
yourself.
The noble
up to
Tao
talk
is
in
not the
public
eternal Tao.
Yeah.
The eternal that you have a rhetoric that you base on a dialectic, and often someone will have a professional do that dialect, or several professionals do that dialectic for an entire nation, and they'll work with that for as long as possible. I'm going to pop out because there's only 10 people at a time, and I'm going to put Cammy back in. My question, number 5: can a society truly be free if it suppresses extremist views, or does this create a hidden undercurrent of dissent?
But don't extremist views kind of like suppress as it is? Like, isn't that the point of extremism?
Right. They exist on the fringes automatically, but you can't really just push them out. They become suppressed, and then they manifest in another way. People organize secretly, and then you have to start monitoring people more and more to ensure that in their own homes they don't have thoughts that they're not allowed to have.
So the answer is no. It can't be suppression. It has to be synthesis.
Well, I think that it has to be dismantled. Like if an idea is bad, then like expose it as bad. And some bad ideas have good components, and we can take those components and actually try to understand them without having the demonized mentality of the people who are using it badly.
This is a conservative bent quiz, okay?
But
Like, all these questions, the right answers are clearly like, like, oh yeah, we got to go against,
Here's
who.
Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is literally just suppress like speech and suppress
That's not
things that
Sorry,
are
Bernie.
unpleasant.
I gotta say, I don't think it's as clear cut as that, because the right or the left are authoritarians. And conservative of what? Conservative of your state, or conservative of your free speech you've had for a few generations? I think a lot of the time you think about during wartime, people assume the military was controlling the media and had to lie to them because everyone was watching American television, even the Vietnam and the commies and whatever. So
Well, let me ask you,
knew
then, who is the most vulnerable to extremist ideas? Like, who gets hurt the most from
the ill-informed with the least opportunity.
I mean, no. In the
Like,
most
well,
in the most
it
materialist
depends.
hardcore.
It really-
no, yeah,
The
exactly. It's like what we're
but
saying.
it depends. It depends on the radical idea. Like,
If people-
not
people
all
get- if people
extreme
get-
ideas are equal.
If people get shot up at a mosque, that's like an extreme. That's a terrible result of an extremist ideology.
With COVID
Yeah, but
vaccine.
if a Muslim has 12 babies, that's also an extreme result of an extreme ideology. Like extremes exist in every direction, and it's all they're not all equal. And I think we have to assess them to actually understand them properly, so that we can process them properly, and not just like react with anger or hatred or suppression whenever we're uncomfortable with something.
What are the philosophical justifications for authoritarianism, and are they ever valid in practice? You can add that to your response.
Just the goalposts are constantly changing. The breadth of extremism grows with every generation. So what's extreme, like what was extreme, 2 generations ago, would be commonplace almost now. Eventually at some point, what is extreme eventually becomes center, and then it just keeps on getting more and more and more extreme.
Well, it oscillates, right?
Until it collapses and tips the
It's like
balance.
what was normal before is now considered extreme. What was extreme before is now considered normal. So it oscillates. It's like we're testing. We're testing out. We're testing out the extremes to see what value we can find there. It's like exploring for the Holy Grail. You go on the side of the forest that is the darkest and the least mapped out, and you can find new things that are good there. I think that we suppress things for a long time, and then suppression causes extremism, and then once we actually analyze the extremes, we go, oh, it's not as bad as we thought. The reaction to the suppression is worse than the actual thing you're suppressing.
I think this is like the Zionist argument that Israel, isn't stoning kids to death, and so regardless, it's probably a better time over there than on the other side of the strip wall. And I don't know how I feel about that all the time, because it might be that, like in Lebanon and Spain, where Muslims had lots of liberty and freedom, that it's not like a left or a right or this or that religion kind of thing, but it has something to do with the authority of the state. So if you have a really authoritarian secularist state that's demanding self-determination rights for its citizens as part of the social contract, then you're benefited by a benevolent dictatorship, right? And so authoritarians who say, we won't even have this discussion, like freedom of speech or death, that's it. That's an example of authoritarianism, right? That's libertarian
Like the
authoritarianism.
calls for imprisoning Elon for Twitter being free speech.
I think Dave Chappelle said it best. It's the First Amendment is sort of the fail safe, and the Second Amendment is when that fail safe fails. Like the First Amendment is there for discussion, and then the Second Amendment is there for when discussion fails.
Party.
Yeah, like I said, talking shit's a full contact sport.
Yeah. I mean, especially now
freedom of
with,
speech is not freedom from consequences.
I mean, you don't even like. You
Yeah,
don't
but
even understand.
that's silly. Like if there's consequences, then it's not
No,
free speech.
no,
it's
dude, we got-
consequence. It's like,
Dude, we got
like,
to know.
this
Dude,
justice.
we live in a.
You're
no,
free to state whatever you want, and
Yeah.
then it's like you should be willing to deal with the consequences.
It's not just being able to say what you want. It's like we're living in a culture where on Instagram Live, people will go on and they call it like crash out culture, like you're a crash dummy or whatever. It's basically you go into IG Live thing and say like a city like Chicago, and you talk wild shit and you say this is where I am, come find me, and you get into a shootout, and if you kill them in a shootout, you get clout, and you're not gonna get arrested. I mean, if you did get arrested, they would see in footage that they shot you, you shot back, you killed them, so it's considered self-defense. And this is becoming a culture. Like this is becoming an actual method of like becoming famous, essentially, like to becoming like social media famous, and this is like the result of like freedom, right? It's like maintaining our freedoms.
Maybe
of decay and collapse.
Maybe free speech needs to be regulated in terms of location, like where we can say things and where we can't, because
safe spaces.
Sure, but the thing is that we can have
by the government.
We can have.
I mean, you can't go into a
just-
black neighborhood.
They found a way to regulate.
What I'm saying is we should have places where we can say things. We should have places where we can say things just like as a hypothetical, and then just explore the ideas.
This is my concern about the
everywhere. I mean, people should be able to deal with hypotheticals, but I mean, free speech is only free from government interference.
People are too emotional.
Okay, so
wherever I stay,
other people's reactions to what you
a lot of people in this world are willing to sleep in prison. You know what I mean, to counter your speech.
let's say you've got a guy or a gal, or better. Let's say you've got a they. And they want to read children's books to kids, right?
Why?
Free speech? Why not? It's a kid's book. It's free speech. They just happen to be wearing a dress and pants at the same time, right?
It's all about context, and there's a certain.
So you're talking about
time
this
and place
idea
for
of safe spaces. This is the thing that I think is
Ray,
interesting.
who
I don't know.
decides?
It's not. I'm not talking about safe spaces, because people will still be offended in these spaces.
I mean, if somebody's not breaking any laws and they're just wearing what they want to wear and they're reading to a kid,
it's more like a free speech place than it is a safe space, because there's nothing safe in that speech. If you're able to say anything, you go there knowing you're going to be offended, knowing that you're going to see extreme and radical ideas that are normally suppressed and on the fringe. So it's not the same. It's not the same location. It's not the same place. While in a real safe space that we have currently, it's a place where speech is limited.
What do we define as safe? Pants or a dress?
Do you know what I think is a real safe space? A safe space is a place that encourages self-alignment.
A safe space is a loving family.
I feel like in schools especially, it's a scary one, because you were saying in school, you're like, okay, I want this school. It's one thing if the kids go to the mall and they see different kinds of folks, but if they're at the school, I want my school to be a way. Well, what way do you want your school? Do you want your kids in a burqa, or do you want your kids in a suit, or do you want your kids in some sort of weird like golf outfit?
State-run public
honestly,
schools.
If culture,
this is why the community decides these things.
Now, for the record, I just want to say I want my kids to be make it so their mind, body, and spirit are not at war with each other. If I could provide at least that for my kids, I could say I've succeeded as a fucking parent. I don't have to give them the world. If I could give them self-alignment, if I could give them allow them to be in a state where their mind, body, and soul are not fighting each other, that's all I fucking care about. When it comes
Good
to
luck.
I'm sorry. It's just what else?
But
is
you're
there?
proposing is the ideal, yeah, obviously.
What else is there? Like that's the only goal. Like
I hope humans humans solve the human problem.
Nerd.
Yeah.
Well, how does the concept of the greater good differ between collectivist and individualist ideologies?
An individualist will recognize that the only
Sorry,
way to
repeat.
affect the great. An individualist would recognize that the only way to affect their greater good is by affecting change within themselves and not trying to force change on other people. That's it.
Right. The individual, the empowered individual can contribute to the greater good. So
empowered being the operative word there.
Yeah.
What was the
idea of the greater good is commie propaganda.
I disagree. I mean, it's used in commie propaganda,
Everyone looking
but
out for the greater
conceptually,
good must be
Propaganda is
communist,
just
right?
Used in
information,
both,
right?
yeah.
Andrea?
the greater using the greater good. It's just the problem with this sort of idea is that it just used to justify all sorts of behaviors that may or may not actually be for the greater good, and then end off causing harm. And then they go, well, we have the good intention, and it's like, yeah, but the result is damaging and dangerous, and everyone has the good in mind. Everyone thinks whenever they do anything, they're doing it for the greater good, especially a politician. I'm sure Hitler was like, oh, for the greater good, but then he's ended up making things a whole lot.
The same flaw of thinking of people who say, like how history how will history reflect on this? It's like you're assuming the end of history. It's like, what if shortly down the road in history we wake up from it's all dream, or we're in a simulation or something, or it's a video game and the way you win is by murdering the most people. So it's like to assume that what's coming, what's going to be like the judgment of history is the same thing as assuming it's going to be for the greater good, because we don't even know if good exists or what good and evil is, or like what kind of organism we are. If are we a super organism, or are we individuals at all? So like to try to aim for things like the greater good, or like to do well by like the judgment of history, it's just like it is like coming from a place of ignorance and overconfidence.
I think we forget that statement of Socrates, that like we don't actually know anything.
Oh.
We just
Hold on.
The answer is yes to that question that Andreas just posted. The answer is yes. We can change can be achieved without violence.
What was the question?
I just want to say, I'll read the question. I'll read it. Can radical change ever be achieved without violence, or is conflict inevitable? And I say fucking yes. The answer is inherently yes, because self-mastery is the only
This is
game...
a guy who uses a sword every day.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm just saying self-mastery is the only
Take that with a
game
grain of salt.
we can only play this game, and we could all win this. We could all play self-mastery. Like, no matter who you are, no matter what circumstances you're born under, no matter what you're given in life, no matter what you've got taken away from you, self-mastery is the only game you will always have access to, and you can always win. All of us can win this game, and once we win this game, all the other games become easier. So this is why I think radical change can be achieved. If all of us figure this out thanks to the internet spreading this fucking bullshit like information,
All right, so
which we should all know.
Yes,
but
so your solution is everyone should just become perfect. Basically,
it's not
The final
perfect.
solution?
No,
Just-
I'm
sorry,
saying-
master
I'm not-
yourself.
I'm
Like,
not even saying
it's kind of
master,
like this.
When I say
You did say
all right,
master.
So
Stop
I'll define
masturbating,
self-mastery.
start mastering self.
What is self-mastery? Self-mastery is just self-alignment to me. Is when you reach a state where your mind, body, and soul are not at war with each other. It's that simple. Like
I think
if
it's possible for you, that should be your aim, but I think we're like a special, like a really distinct class of people here too. And like sometimes you need to remember that like the human species diversifies into specification of labor.
Well, simple doesn't
and,
mean easy. I didn't say.
Well, I
easy.
just want to
said
say that some
simple.
people's lifestyle isn't conducive to self-mastery. It's conducive to getting through the day, working.
And they
at the
serve a
mill.
function.
You know what I mean? It's
I
like,
agree.
And,
No,
and
I
everyone,
totally agree.
everyone serves a function. It's sort of like just a natural law that humans kind of go.
I mean,
into
what I'm
specificity.
talking about is the kind of thing that you'll never stumble upon unless you lose everything in life, unless you've really been through literal shit.
Totally. And
this is why
people
you
like
wanna
some
spread
kind
it.
of
so you
Buddha.
don't have. I want to spread it so you don't have to go through this shit. I want to
Totally,
give you
that's what it's supposed to be, as like
Yeah,
an
well,
example,
that's-
like Buddha.
that's the goal,
Buddha,
right?
The Christ,
Yeah,
and there's
like-
a reason those people always have no kids and no
Dude,
dependents.
I'm an
so they can
asshole.
make
I'm a
that
jerk.
sacrifice
Or
I'm
so
a-
they say.
Like
as
I
an
know,
example.
I know I'm just another piece of shit, just like everyone else. But
Whoa.
I happen to go through just enough shit.
Hey,
at
wait.
just the right
Don't
time.
talk shit about my friend like that.
I'm just saying. Listen, I happen to have
fucked up,
gone
bro.
through just the
How
right amount of shit.
self-mastered if you still think you're shit? Come on.
Yeah, bro, come on, man.
It's a form of self-humbling, right? Just like how you flagellate yourself in like spiritual practices. It's kind of like that with words.
I
But-
am one.
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
why I
That's
insult my
what
friend.
we return to.
I think we have
Yeah.
to deal with the frustration of the average person. I mean, of the preponderance, the plurality of people are not going to master
Look,
themselves.
I'm-
whether or not they should, I think they
disagree.
should.
down.
I
I'm
think
down.
I think it's our burden
Come for
to
the
deal with.
effort.
Yo, how about
Do you
this? You
think
want to
our
hear?
burden to deal with the fact that just ain't gonna happen?
I will say I disagree, because when I look on YouTube, just YouTube, I look at all these spiritual YouTube channels, and they range across all classes, all races, like so many different demographics. Like I see queer spiritual alignment channels. I see black
This is-
spiritual
yeah.
alignment channels. I see masculine, feminine. This is
They
spreading.
should
like
all
fucking-
align with each
It's
other.
been rising
They
for
are,
the
and
last 2 years.
they
Because
ultimately,
of
but they
it.
ultimately are the ones that really know their shit. Are ultimately saying it doesn't matter that we're queer or black or masculine or feminine. Like we all have divine masculine,
But
divine feminine.
I've
we're
heard
all
that,
metaphysical
why
beings and all that.
I've heard
shit.
that.
matters. Yeah.
Wait, what did you get?
I've heard that black
Oh, I
skin
was
makes you
disagreeing.
more.
Like, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
I'm just saying. it's like-
I've heard that black skin is more spiritual though. So like you know,
the phytomelanin, the Nation of Islam teaches that. That's true.
people
They teach that.
kind of people have to get over ego and these sort of
Are you
cultural
going to become?
boundaries.
Are you going to self-realize
Don't you-
become by losing yourself to centrism, or you self-realize becoming super extreme? Like, shouldn't everyone just be like super extreme?
Can't
Is
you just
centrism-
be an extreme centrist?
That was my version of the question. Is
What about
centrism
horseshoe
inherently
theory?
a form of compromise, or is it necessarily balanced between these?
Okay, but I think that there's a problem. There should be a fourth option in there because centrism still
But there's not.
positions
It's
you.
me or Tim Pool. Like
The thing is that
realistically.
it puts you inside of this sort of cultural boundary that you can definitely not be a part of. I think that there should be a forced shamanic option that allows you to be outside of the entire thing and criticize centrism as well.
Isn't that what Isn't that what? Am I wrong here? I feel like that's what it is. If you have the heterodoxy, we're the meta, right? We're the meta that has the heterodoxy.
Right. But the thing is that there's plenty of centrists who are not in the meta.
Andreas, I just want you to know,
which is you can
Wait,
be in
let
the
me
center
speak,
for different reasons. You can be in the center because you actually think moderation between extremes is always correct. Like, we'll just make abortion what's halfway of 9 months. We'll make it 4.5 months is where we cut that. Or you could be in the center because you're disregarding the poles altogether and trying to be like the gray Jedi or the Buddha and just not letting that stuff in. So it's like, yeah, I'm lawful neutral on everything. So I think lawful neutral is different than compromising on everything. It's like the opposite reason for being in the center.
Yeah, I
No,
feel like
real
that's
centrists
interesting
would
'cause
bring
on one hand,
bring
on one
a
hand, you're-
compromise to the center. It's
Well,
you're taking
centrism
one
is
extreme
what it's saying.
and you're
half
mixing up.
communism and half fascism. Really,
Look, if dark and light are saying we want all darkness and we want all lightness, and you're saying you get neither, you get gray. Basically, what you're saying is nobody is happy, right? That's kind of the goal of centrism, and maybe there's something to that, and that's kind of. But to me, it just seems like really Bauhaus and like the wrong kind of German philosophy.
Yeah.
And then there's like, if you have extremism, you're like, I understand this is really extreme, it's crazy, and this person over here is really extreme and crazy, but I hear them out. And by hearing them out, I am the meta that you're talking about because I'm outside of it. I feel like that's
Right.
the only real solution.
Right. So that's different though than
Self-realized.
saying that the right answer is right in the middle of everything. Like that's what I think.
Right.
Like
I don't think-
well,
I don't
is
think
there a
so.
difference between what's the centrist anyway? Is it like a moderate? Is that what we're talking about? Like
Yeah,
political
I think it's
moderates?
like
Well-
it's some. I think what you just said was 100% on
Oh, okay,
course.
good. Then I'll
Okay,
shut up.
but
here's what I think
I
is-
think your definition is better than any other centrist definition.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, let's say you take a guy in a jungle, okay, and he's never heard of leftism or rightism or centrism, and then you just take him out of the jungle and you put him in our culture.
And
Is he a
Taco Bell.
centrist? Like, is he a centrist? He doesn't have any reference. Is he right in the center?
He
or
might
is he
be a
outside of it?
That might be a centrist.
he's a
I don't know
libertarian.
unless they
He's
have
a
a law.
libertarian, man.
Unless he has no, he's not a libertarian. He wants his Mountain Dew frosty Taco Bell drink can thing, and he's just in the middle of all of this. He's what we said earlier. Who's the most affected by propaganda? The ill-informed with the least opportunity. So
That's what
if
you got to be.
some-
That's my goal. I want to be ill-informed with ill.
He doesn't even understand the
Centrist-
language, so he can't be
The
indoctrinated.
way that I see what a
You
centrist
can.
is, it is not somebody that's in the direct middle. It's someone that takes both ends of whatever particular. If you have two people in a conversation and you have one perspective and another perspective, they're different, right? And say they differ all the way, but you break apart the right one and the left one. You break them apart. You bring them and bridge them together, because there is going to be validity in both sides, and you help both sides to see the validity of each other, so they see each other. You're a mirror.
So what you're saying is that a centrist is where the black part and the white part of a yin yang meet, as opposed to being
Yes.
the actual black part
And it's
the
not
white
it's
part.
not a blend of gray. It's just a wave.
Observer.
The where they meet is a wave. So that's what you got to look at.
It can be anywhere on the yin yang symbol. It goes inside of the dots. It comes back outside of the dots. It brings the
That seems
dot
like
larger on one side and shrieks it on the other
That's
side, and then goes
that's
and
the meta though.
repeats
You're
the
talking
process.
again. That's not a centrist. That's a meta.
Yeah, I'm saying
Well,
that
that's
a
how
centrist is that
that's what I
line.
choose to look at it
not
as.
the body
No,
of
a
it.
true
So maybe
centrist.
maybe
How
somebody
many
else
centrists?
would not.
I
Maybe
think that's
somebody else would
literally
not call that
that's
centrism.
literally
But
the issue. Most people would define centrism the way Seth did, as somebody who's moderately so far left and so far right that they're neither left or right. And so they're in the middle, and they kind of just see it as, whatever they work out, that's kind of fine. I figure that they've got it, and they'll work it out. And,
There's different
Right,
reasons
so
for
there's-
wanting that too, though. There's two reasons for, like, I feel that way, but probably is a different way than a political moderate would be like, this is the way we hold our society together. Everyone can't get what they want all the
Right.
time. We have to compromise.
Exactly.
My thing is like, things are going to things happen inevitably either way. And like me investing myself in it just screws up my own zen and peace of mind. So, and all I can do to improve things is improve myself. So I just try to detach from what's going to happen. I don't vote. I don't care. It's going to happen either way. So it's like, there's different,
or
different
concessions are made, right? Like, so a centric politician will be like, okay, I'm a Christian politician. I'm not really Christian, like, devoutly, but my constituency is Christian. And even though my wife had an abortion, my constituency is against abortion. So I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like that.
Had an abortion.
This is not like just a metaphor. This is a lot
abortion
of
is
Right,
is
right.
the best
That's
one
a-
to
that's a
do,
moderate-
to
It's a
run this
profile.
test with too. That's what I was talking about with philosophy. There's like an order of operations. So it's like, if you know the principle, then you don't need to know anything else. But with abortion, you have to draw a line, right? Or I mean, politically, you have to draw a line because the principle isn't clear. Because you have dueling principles. Obviously, choice. We all want choice, and life. We're all in favor of life. Life is better than death. Choice is better than slavery.
Yo,
so
Seth.
it's like pick one, and you can't have the other. You can have life
Seth,
without
Seth.
choice.
Can I ask you a question real quick? It's a yes or
Yeah.
no question. Do you believe in
Okay.
free will?
I'm not sure.
All right, cool. That's
Good
fine.
answer.
That's
That's a
fine.
hard one.
But,
I'm satisfied with that answer.
Yeah, I
That's
have no
a good
idea.
answer.
But
I'm
you know,
satisfied.
probably, you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But with abortion, it's like, so for
That's a good
me,
answer.
I've got dueling principles. I would say that choice to me is a life without choice is not good. Like, I don't want that, you know? So like, I would say choice is first, but I would prefer that people choose life. I would choose life, but they have to be able to choose on their own. And that's, you know, so you have to be able to make an argument. You have to be able to strongman their argument, understand their point of view, and try to persuade them, you know, if you can. And if not, they're going to do what they do anyhow.
Don't
I
we
don't-
define
I
freedom
don't
as where
at all.
your freedom ends where it infringes on another's? Correct? Isn't that?
I don't even, I
it-
mean, it's too entangled.
I have a
Well,
question.
other people's freedoms are our responsibilities. Like, we have to allow them to have those freedoms. So
Yeah.
it's a mutual thing. You know,
I'm gonna
I think that's
add
just
a-
part of freedom.
Can we have
I'm
Rasta
gonna add-
Putin's question? Or Rasta Putin is going to say something.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think the actual question is, you know, for the extremes, you know, authoritarian measures can enforce those. How I don't understand by any of these definitions what a centrist actually is, because how can it authorities enforce centricism? How can centricism be enforced?
Well, that reminds me of like the radical
Through
agnostics.
education and manipulation.
It's like this reminds me of a Key and Peele speech. No, sorry, it was a what's his name? He was doing a street preacher agnostic. So he's like, oh, I don't know if Christ is real, but we have to enforce that maybe or maybe not it is. I think that, you know, centrism is kind of like it can be enforced in the sense of the balance between Democrats and
I got one
conservatives.
word.
Sorry, liberals and conservatives.
One word answer: economy. You know, because like what it is that you get people into a situation where a stick and a carrot's going to beat them, or they're going to incentivize something.
That's a political problem, not a philosophical problem. Like, if you're a philosopher, you really can't engage in religion or politics. It's
Honestly, do you know how you get
all up.
really neurodivergent about this stuff? Is you got to play video games like Stellaris or like one of those paradox games, because like that'll get you really neurodivergent. You know, like because like the way you view this stuff becomes very gamified because you could like map it out really easily.
Well,
especially, like,
I
based on
played
history.
Control and I played Control and got autistic. So.
Matt Walsh is coming for your anime video game.
God, I love that game.
How do different
Control,
ideologies?
fucking amazing game.
How do different
Yes,
ideologies
control
interpret?
is something else.
I know games are great. How do different ideologies interpret the concept of justice, and where do they clash?
Well,
Can you think of an example? I guess.
I mean, look,
First
if we can see
stage?
some of the
Wow.
leftist behavior can
Oh,
be like,
I got one. Sterling, do you have any thoughts on this one? This one's actually like, think about this one, because you can think about what justice is. What would you do with this one?
Different ideologies interpret the concept of justice, and where do they clash?
Can you think of?
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to think about it for a second. Yeah.
All right,
I've been
fine.
thinking
Vince,
about
like
a lot.
blood
Not
test
a lot of
first.
it, yeah.
Somehow I
Blood
felt like you'd
money.
have like ideas on subjective justice. Oh, sorry.
well, you know, like
Sharia law
the
versus
idea.
legal law.
Objective
There's
Yeah,
a
what do you
difference
think of
between
as justice?
there's a difference between law and justice. Justice is what is actually right and wrong, and law is just the structure by which we regulate behaviors in our culture. So it's not actually that connected in a way.
I think
like,
you got just and justice confused, right? If it's just, it's good and honest, but justice.
but those
is
are the same root words.
Yeah,
They come from the
I
same
think that's
word.
exactly. We're looking for what's
After.
just. I think different cultures have different ideas about what is just. You know.
You know, I think that there's a major problem in justice in the sense that we sort of make these special parameters for justice while ignoring the proper justice for others. Like
You wanna hear something
everyone
fucked
has
up?
everyone has trauma, everyone has injustice in their lives, but most people will never get justice and most people will never get healing.
Let me
But
tell you
everyone's
something.
trauma is valid and everyone's injustice is equally valid to address and to bring to justice.
I'll tell you some fucked up definition of mine. Like I have a really simplistic, barbaric, reductive view, and I say justice is whatever outcome you can feel grateful for.
Tear the baby in half. No, that's not where you're going.
No, that's terrible.
No,
Twain.
no, I said justice is whatever outcome you can feel grateful for. Like that. is
Grateful for.
justice.
Well, I don't agree.
I think justice is a platonic concept that doesn't exist in the material world. You know what I mean? And you put yourself into twist ending theater right away when you start trying to enact justice in the material world. This guy's a killer. Now we have to kill him. Now I'm a killer. You know what I mean? Or when
Right.
someone
I mean,
else is
but
saying about
if
your
whatever you
This
say-
kind of makes me think of the Batman
Think
problem.
about
You know,
it.
like
if you could feel thankful
blood
for
justice
if you,
or is
if-
blood money?
Let's hear about the
justice,
Batman
right?
problem.
Can you
Look,
get
yeah,
blood
well,
material
you know,
or spirit?
Batman is sort of the embodiment of vengeance and justice together. But the thing is, he never actually gets justice. All he gets is the perpetual combat against injustice. And so it never actually ends, and justice can never be truly achieved.
Well, it's a project, right?
It's a project, but it's a never ending. It's more like it's
Well, right.
like a
If
cleanup.
you could reach perfection, in my opinion, if you could reach perfection, we never will, because if you could, everything would freeze in place.
The problem
and it would be
is that
stuck there.
when
I asked ChatGPT and it answered the question for me.
when the ongoing when the ongoing
Okay.
conflict ends for Batman, he teeters into authoritarianism and becomes a problem.
He's really doing the Batman thing? I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in
I did it, yeah.
You were teasing me.
Well, Batman
what do
is
you
a
think
symbol.
you know
I mean,
about justice? You think you know
Batman is
justice?
DC. You're talking about Marvel.
Yeah, dude. I don't know.
they're all connected, bro.
Bro, you're gonna get canceled.
I can't wait
I'd like
for
to
that.
think that
crossover.
Batman
Different
would rest.
ideologies.
I'd
Different
like to
ideologies
think if he
interpret.
really achieved justice.
You got it?
Combat,
You
yeah.
got, how's he gonna?
If he achieved justice, he would have healed.
Okay. Different ideologies interpret the concept of justice
Yeah, I'd
based
like
on
to
their
think he'd
fundamental
step away.
values, often leading to significant clashes in terms of application priority. Here's a breakdown: liberalism, and then I was thinking about world cultures. By the way, this is hilarious. From about politics all of a sudden. So, for liberalism, seeing justice as fairness, they advocate institutions that protect civil liberties and promote equality and opportunity. Conservatives, justice from a conservative perspective often involves maintaining social stability and rewarding merit while preserving long-standing institutions like family, religion, and nation. Justice about upholding moral values and individual accountability. Socialists argue that justice can only be achieved by redistributing wealth and dismantling capitalist structures. Justice is collective, emphasizing the distribution of resources to ensure that no one is oppressed by a systemic class exploitation. Libertarians, justice in their view means protecting individual autonomy, property rights, and the freedom to engage in voluntary transactions. Libertarians are opposed to government-imposed redistribution or control, viewing justice as letting individuals freely pursue their interests. Then there's intersectional ideas, focusing on dismantling patriarchy and other forms of oppression. I would say ableism, with the emphasis on equity, fairness, and accounts for differences in people's circumstances. There are people that want equity above all things, right? They want no black, no white, just gray, right? Like they want no darkness, no light, just gray, right?
I think that they want all the things to be different and equal. I don't think they want homogeneity.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you do both, bro? Come on.
Harmony. It's music. It's music. You
You
need.
don't
Yeah, how
have
did
to
this
blend black and
You
white.
need an outlet for war. You need an outlet for
It's a
conflict. You need an
black,
outlet for
white, black,
violence.
white, black, white.
I
You
think-
know, he's right. It does take all types to make the world go round. The world needs all these types of things and types of people to exist, and that's what they always do.
Fair.
I think if you had just a world tournament where all the races got to present their best fighters,
The
they
Olympics?
just-
Street Fighter. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, every single race, every single nationality, country, and they all fight to the death. And like, if they did that every single like 50 years,
4 years.
we 50 years.
Olympics.
4 years.
No,
is
we gotta
what-
do it often, like Hunger Games, bro.
Oh man.
And
I
they
think
can't be
50
paid athletes.
If
I
you
think
could throw a
50
fireball, would they let you in the
no,
UFC?
No,
And
we're
that
talking
would
about
be BS.
Mortal Kombat IRL. So you can't do that every 4 years. Like 50
Bloodsport.
years is 50 years is about
Hunger Games.
Yeah,
because
I
you
feel
want to
like
break
Yeah,
it by
you gotta give people
generations.
time to.
You only want to do this
grow,
once
you
every
know?
generation, right? You want to do it like, oh, this generation of fighters, the next gen, like their kids or their, and then their.
I like the
kids,
system of
So
king
do
versus
the winners
king.
are
You know,
the
the
winners
one
more
king fights the
equal?
other king. I like that. Like, don't even get anyone
Yeah.
else involved.
There we go. Yeah, that's what we should.
I think you
So,
make
like,
a person a king for a day, and then you let everybody know where they live after that, and so, you know, they better have done a really good job that day.
Hold
How
on.
does-
Which world leader
yeah,
do you think
if
would
you're
win
like,
in a battle
on a
royale?
stock
Yo,
Stock
Kim
account,
Jong
people
Un,
are a
bro.
lot
North
more
Korea, yo,
Kim
North
Jong-un.
Korea they would present the most killer fucking fighter ever.
All
He
I
would-
want to know is what are their special moves. I need
He
to
would
know
kill
our
the
special moves.
Israelis. He would kill the Iranians. Yo, Kim Jong Un would be like, "Yo, you want to do this deathmatch national thing, man? I will
You have
fucking
the
wreck
power that
all
they-
of you."
Take
I don't
food
even
out of their
support that,
stomach.
man. I just know.
Is
deep
this
down
It'd be
bare
like
fist,
Marvel
though,
versus
or are they in a
Capcom
ring?
and Den-
I'm
Dennis
talking-
Rodman.
yeah, I
Yo,
was-
look
I
at
was
look at
thinking
the
bare fist,
Olympics.
yeah.
North Korea crushes it in the Olympics. They really do. Like maybe they're not like spectacular or whatever or camera worthy,
good.
but they by record like they do fucking sick, and that's because they're consistently like high performance. They could fucking
Because they beat them with sticks, yeah.
if you want to beat the
Faster.
cartel, if you want to beat the cartels, you don't send American soldiers. You send North Korea. North Korea could wipe them out easily. That's what I mean. I think that might happen. Actually,
I think
Like,
that
don't
proves
know.
my point that everybody knows deep down North Koreans are kind of based. What are you with the where do you go? How does online anonymity affect the way people express extreme views?
God, that seems so obvious.
more
Why-
I reject anonymity.
more
I like to
extreme
be who
people
I
are.
am.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like to
but
be
like
who I am.
you know, you got thoughts on this?
Oh, me? No, it's
Yeah,
like
you're-
so obvious, bro. I mean,
Yes, dude.
did you have the internet? Haven't you seen?
Sock
Yeah, people
puppets
go
are
wild.
the
People
most
go wild
cute
when they
film.
have the little egg avatar or cartoon anime avatar. They go wild. They say wild stuff that they wouldn't say in the real. I mean, yeah.
I think-
I think it's a good
Express it.
release valve.
Hey,
Well, here's my
Release
thought. My thought is that because we have so much like ability now to create content and produce it and just pump it out without even putting in work, authenticity, the price of it skyrockets. Like honestly, the value of like sincerity and authenticity just goes increasingly higher because there's less reason to cultivate that for people now. There's less reason to cultivate authenticity, sincere belief, sincere expression because it's like, oh, I could just bullshit my way to a good life, right? I could just make bullshit food reels with like infinite cans of beans and cream cheese and a bunch of bullshit, or I could just fucking like do a bunch of sexual shit. Like people who are just authentically aligned and express that, like that's a really valuable now, you know, because like it's going to become rare as people get the ability to just kind of like skirt that need. And yeah,
But also pseudonymity, because if you think about it, some of the greatest works of our history are written by, you know, women pretending to be men or Benjamin Franklin pretending to be somebody else. I mean, pseudonymity allows for you to not only be anonymous, protect your daily persona like Zorro, but also allows you to be somebody else. So you're able to. You don't have-
I love that. I agree with that. That's why I won't even take the check mark on Instagram because then I can't change my avatar. And like I like to change it to like a Santa hat at Christmas. I want maximum freedom to change
Do they
myself.
really not
You know
let
what I
you
mean?
do
I don't want to
that?
get locked into being the same guy I am forever.
I think you can change your picture. I
No.
think they'll let you do that. Really?
No.
Is that
Really?
a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you
Once
just
a
have to.
year.
No,
send
once
them
you
an
get a
ID
check mark
picture.
on Instagram, you can't change your avatar.
Oh, on
or your
Instagram.
username
Instagram.
Really?
on Instagram. Yeah, that's why I didn't do it.
Oh, on Instagram, not
Yeah,
Twitter.
but I love pseudonymity, for sure. Whatever encourages you, whatever allows you to say things that you feel you would have consequences for saying other. I like it when people say whatever's on their mind. I want people to say whatever's on their mind. If they need to be anonymous or under a pen name, whatever it is, I think they should say what's on their mind.
Shit post on main, always.
Yeah, I do that. I should
Yeah.
post on main. I'm like that. I'm terrible like that. But you know what? At least I know I'm not trying to hurt anyone, because I know hurting you just means hurting me in the long run on a spiritual level and all that. Yada yada yada. But that does guide me, in terms of my shit posting. If I'm gonna shit post, I don't want to like focus on one person where I hurt them so badly where it's just hurting me. I just want to make people more aware, more conscious. That's really all we can ask for, right?
Davey's cool. Thanks, Davey.
Super sticker.
What
sorry,
is the
did I
role?
kill the vibe?
No. I think we're all just
Oh,
we're like,
no,
what's the
I
next
think
question?
that's great.
We're
Next
just
one.
eager to hear the next.
Let's see if we can get through 10.
Yeah. What is the role of empathy in understanding and engaging with extremist views?
Huge, because you have to
Mhm.
understand. It's like, oh, you had your family murdered. That's why you've turned to such extremism and hate, sort of thing. If you actually want to engage and reach out and de-escalate someone's extremist views and the hate that's through it,
100%. Empathy is everything. Empathy is the highest value as far as I'm
It's our
concerned.
psychic
yeah.
power. It's magic. That's the
Yeah.
source of our fucking
Like
magic.
Bob
Like,
Marley
that's-
said, the biggest
Yeah.
man you ever did see was once just a tiny baby. Every bad man was once a tiny baby.
I think. I also
and you
think
gotta-
empathy. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, go
Every
ahead.
man was a baby. No, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
empathy was-
everyone was once a tiny baby and innocent and cute. And it's like once again, if you don't have a principle, you draw a line. You're like, now they're 13. Now they're responsible for everything they do. Doesn't matter that they got raped when they were 3 years old. Now they're responsible because they turned 13. So you're just drawing arbitrary lines because you don't understand the principle. So we all need to put our heads together and try to define the principle, which is that we want to, do what we can to modify ourselves to lessen the suffering of others and just try to, and I've actually heard people push back against the whole concept of decreasing suffering, in the world.
Well, to be honest, I have I think I have I kind of have a grudge against how people view empathy, because they view it a lot of the times externally. They're like, I have to be empathetic of this person, I have to be empathetic of them. But when they think of empathy, most often than not, and this sounds lame to say out loud, but it's true, most people are never empathetic with themselves. Like, most people do not forgive their past misdeeds. Most people
That's
do
true.
not live day to day forgiving their own fucked up, because we've all done like really fucked up shit.
Self-flagellation.
Yeah. And
Especially
most
for-
people, and when you live like that, when you live like being empathetic to others and not empathetic to yourself, that's still an
Empathetic,
imbalance.
Just selfless, like Bernie.
Yeah, that's still an imbalance. That still fucks you up. That still kills you. You know?
Stadium.
I have a principle, which is that the correct course of action with people who are behaving badly is you have to heal them. They have to be healed. You can't put them in a cage. You can't kill them. You're going to make things, I don't know if you're going to make things worse, but it's not going to solve the problem. Certainly. You know what I mean? And this applies to everybody, even like the people, whatever your most hateful thing a person can do is. For most people, it's like pedophilia. Guess what? You still can't beat those people to death with hammers. You have to heal them too. Healing is always is always the answer. And if you get into a situation where you really can't,
Yeah, I don't know.
if you get of course, if you get into a situation where you
protect your kids.
where you're just sure you have to kill someone, then you've got to kill yourself next, because now you're the kind of person who
I don't know, man.
You're a
If
loved
somebody's in
one
clear and
concerned
present
about this.
danger,
Eh.
I think-
I know it's
Hold
the
on.
funniest thing too, because I used to have like a big Christian following and stuff, and I would always disagree with this on this. I'm like, did Jesus Christ give you permission somewhere to like murder specific classes of people? Well, he said you'd be better to tie a millstone around your neck, but did he say that you should tie a millstone around their neck? No, you know what I mean? And how many lepers have you washed today, by the way? You know what I mean? Which is why I don't
I
have
like the
any
one
Christian
where he's
followers
like,
anymore.
he's like,
I totally
You got to go right
disagree.
to pedophiles, because let's find the principle. You drew a line somewhere.
George
we can
Carlin,
kill them.
George,
We
George
can torture
Carlin,
them. We drew a line. We have no principle.
George
But I think-
Carlin already solved this. You take everybody who you have a problem with, and then you take Kansas or some state you don't care about, and you just put them all in that state, and then you let
No,
them
because
all-
that's what people say with Jews. Put all the Jews in Israel. I've had
Mhm.
people who know me tell me
Honestly,
that. I don't want to
you-
kill them all, but they all have to stay in Israel.
You know, it'd
from
be a
now
very
on.
barbaric
No.
solution.
Yo,
if
let
you
me,
just
let
make
me say, I
there are
need to say
tornadoes
something
in
about.
Kansas.
no, wait, before
you
you,
can't-
Colin, let me say
You
this
can't
real
put
quick. You'd
people-
love this.
All right,
All
be
right,
careful
great.
with his YouTube, Colin.
No, I was just gonna say, like, imagine that pedophiles had to
I will.
fight for their prey. Like, imagine if pedophiles had to fight the parents of the children to the death for the right to like do whatever
or
they want with
each
their
other.
imagine if
I was
you-
always for
That sounds like a great
Gladiator.
movie.
Imagine
coming
if you
back.
heal a pedophile and
That'd be great.
he's able to start a group that heals other pedophiles, and they know things about pedophile
Okay,
networks,
okay.
and they're able to save the children. and
Okay,
actually
so
help.
that's
Well, no,
like
what about
that's all
okay,
Battle
super,
Royale
like-
Pedo Island?
Okay, Park Chan-wook,
Yeah.
calm down. We
Yeah.
don't need.
See, this
right.
exposes the lack of principle. This exposes people.
No, let me
this
just
kind of
say what I'm
reaction
trying to
comes from a
say.
lack
It's
of
important. No,
Go
I
ahead,
wouldn't
Colin.
say so.
Go ahead.
What
Colin.
I'm trying to say is that when you were saying you can't just put them away in cages, you got to heal them or whatever. What I'm saying is like, yes, of course you can put them in cages. Like if somebody's a clear and present danger and they are like obviously a
Yeah,
clear
you
and
could
present
detain
danger,
them.
you have to
gotta defend them.
detain them. And like when somebody does something so heinous, it's not your job to heal them. It's their job. They can
Yes,
go
it
in the
is.
cage and heal
How
themselves.
do you know for
They
sure
can
it's
heal
not your job?
themselves.
How do you know it's not your
Because
job?
Culture's
How do you
it's
job
up to
to
them.
heal.
Because we
It's-
can
it's
only
some-
control ourselves.
If somebody
And
does
that's
Not
something
really.
so
We
heinous,
can,
they
we
can
just talk,
only
we just
control
talked for an
themselves.
hour and a half
You
about
can't
rhetoric
control
and
them.
dialectic and how you can manipulate people with words instead of violence. I'm
See,
pretty
because
sure
I
you can
think if we
control
do the Socratic thing and we reduce this to a principle,
Talk
I
to
mean,
him at the cage.
The thing is, if
That's
we-
all I'm saying.
If we
what if the
if we
pedophile
don't
was
heal
raped as
them,
a child? At what point do you get
A
to
lot
kill
of the
them? Like,
time.
what if
Talk
they're
to 'em
9 years
about it in
old?
the
Then you have to
cage.
heal them, but when
You
they're
know?
10.
If
Okay,
it doesn't
okay, so
heal
yeah, you
them-
can temporarily constrain someone. I mean, you can't just put
It is
someone in a
suppressive.
cage for life. You know what I mean, or for 25 years or something like that.
and
This
it,
is
it
not a good
doesn't solve the
solution.
problem
It
long
creates
term. We're only putting
psychic
Band-Aids on.
earthquakes that we all, have to deal with later.
Do you guys think it would be more chaotic if humans had the ability just innate to do telekinesis, like just to be able to rip apart bodies to each other, like whenever?
No, it
we
would
wanted?
solve everything almost instantly.
Well, I think we need psychic. I
Yeah.
think we're better off having psychic powers than empathy would be.
No,
Through
no,
the
I'm
roof
serious. Like, do you
everywhere.
think that would like really help? Because like that means kids. And
No, it
women
wouldn't
and
help.
men-
Obviously, it's just if everyone could just rip each other apart anytime. Like, come
But
on.
we would treat each other a lot better.
No.
wouldn't we?
Yeah, it would.
If
calm-
everyone
it
had
would calm us
guns, it
down.
would be the Wild West.
It would-
If
it would
everyone
I
had
would never
psychic
say-
powers that make each other
America,
explode-
Vince. I know you're Canadian like me, but that is America. Everyone
It
does
would-
have guns there.
It would
I'm just
cull
saying if-
everyone
I'm aware,
down
I'm
to
aware,
a
but it
smaller-
doesn't stop gun violence. It
I
doesn't.
just
would-
know I would
racism.
never
It doesn't-
I would never talk shit if they could fucking telekinetically
True.
rip apart my bodies. I would only
Yeah,
want
but
to make
look,
them feel
yeah,
good.
but someone can come up and stab you in the back. It doesn't. It's the same thing.
That
It's
was
the
my
same
superpower.
man who died.
I don't know about that. I think it's like the fact that even a child, if a child could do, if this was an innate human ability,
A child can grab a knife and stab you or shoot you with a gun. It happens.
Children,
Right.
please don't do
It's
that.
not-
Oh my
You know what,
god! Is
Vincent?
it possible to
not
truly
Yeah, children at
unite?
home.
Look where
Truly
ChatGPT
unite.
brought us. It's amazingly ironic. Is it possible to truly unite heterodox views, or are some ideology fundamentally incompatible, or there's some things that are just incompatible?
Well, yeah, some ideas
the
just
wrong
don't
ones
work
don't
with
work.
each other. It's like you can't have
As is.
you can't have Jewish and anti-Jewish in this. They can't coexist
or
long
you can't have
term.
atheism
Yeah,
and
they do,
spirituality
though,
in the
but-
same
They
thing.
do,
Yeah,
but long
can't they-
term,
It seems like they
it
have.
will.
Like,
One of them.
How
one
many
of them has to
thousands of
conclude-
years have they been existing?
Define heterodox
Right.
first. Heterodox means against the norm. Orthodox is the norm. Heterodox.
But that's
is
the thing.
against
They
Heterodox to
can't, they
me
can't be
refers on
synthesized.
both-
They
both
remain. They
extremes,
remain
right?
opposites.
No, but you can have two different heterodox views that can be aligned. Absolutely, like two heterodox views. Pick a subject. What's a subject?
Abortion.
Guns.
Yeah.
Abortion. So two heterodox views would be all babies should be aborted, and another one would be
Antinatalism.
all babies. I don't know. That's a bad one to pick. but
No,
heterodox
pro,
just
pro
means
and
There's
antinatalist. That's
antinatalist.
great. That's
Yeah.
great.
it just means no, because those are both
Antinatalist,
normalized opinions. But heterodox is
exists.
like we're all heterodox, right? Like we'd
Yeah.
be censored if we say what we want to say on YouTube. So there's different people here. I could be censored for what I'm saying. You have to heal all pedophiles. And
Wait.
Jack McLeod maybe wants to say something that we'd get him censored for a different reason. And those are both heterodox opinions. But
Yeah.
I think that they can be, some heterodox opinions
Synthesized.
can
Is
be synthesized.
heterodoxing
Well-
when you dox a
Well,
heterosexual?
it's interesting. It's interesting you say synthesized because when you were talking about that, you said, "Well, yeah, but you can't put them in a cage forever." That made me go, You know what I'm saying? So it modified.
And then I
my
agree
view
with
a
you
little
that
bit.
people have to be detained when they're going crazy and putting everyone in
Yeah, yeah.
danger. Yeah, they have to be detained. But
So
you've
maybe
gotta-
that's how heterodoxy can be like. So these different extreme viewpoints, maybe they can. So what I'm trying to say is like not as is. So if you have two opposing viewpoints and they're so far out of sync they cannot be compatible, but But what maybe the possibility is to help modify both of those views so they grow into something that is compatible, is a possibility.
I think when I first saw this map, like years and years ago in political science or something, in like community college, like I think I was like 16. I saw this map and I thought to myself, anarchism, Islam. Wow. You know what I mean? There's just something about that made me want to start APM. Right there. Because it's like fringe lunatic. There it is. There it is. There's the thing that ties it all together. That's the rainbow. That's Little Miss Lady Rainbow.
Where is Judaism in this?
Yeah. No. Here's the thing.
Will
Let
you
me
please
quote.
send this to
Let
the
me
chat?
quote.
Where's the Jewish?
Yo,
Where's the
guys,
Jewish? You have
guys.
Islam, you have Catholics, but you don't
Listen,
have
listen.
any...
It's the
The
missing,
waters- Yo,
purple
guys.
between anarchism
The waters-
and Islam,
Judaism
apparently.
is-
The
Oh, I
waters
didn't-
that the mystic swims in is the waters that the schizo drowns in. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just remember
Timothy
that.
Leary.
It's true.
No, wait.
I never discovered
Timothy?
a truer thing
Bentley
about
Beal?
that specific. But it's true. And you know what's cool? It's like, you know, guys like, I mean, I'm not saying guys like Trump are cool. I don't know him personally, but I do know he's into this shit. He's into esoteric shit. Like these people running, like these
All
Democrats,
people
these
in
Republicans-
all ultra rich
All of them
billionaires
are.
are all into esoteric shit. You
Dude,
can't be
it's-
a billionaire and not be into esoteric shit.
I'm
impossible.
like, it's crazy. Like once I learned that, that's what made me take it truly seriously. It made me take it like from like fringe to like, okay, this is something where like clearly the people who are running, even if it's not true, the people who are run our world believe it's true. Therefore, it
Yeah.
might as well be true. Because
Any
they run
magic
we
system
make
they
it
believe
true.
in, any
Right.
religion system. Like there's a difference between believing something and taking it seriously, and people have to take this shit seriously.
Yes, because they believe in it.
Yeah,
They've
because it's
studied
there.
it. They've practiced it.
There's
yeah.
real world consequences to even
Exactly.
false ideas. So
And this is why I think, like,
Yeah.
yo, trust. Don't get me wrong. I don't think secret means bad. I think there's a reason why these things were kept a cult. But now the cat's out of the bag, you know, because of the internet. Like the truth is, like the reason
by
why these things were-
design.
the reason these things were kept secret was because like you had to protect the people who were protecting this knowledge. If you
Yeah, but they want us to know it now. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
'cause-
They
yeah,
slowly,
now,
we're
yeah.
gradually being indoctrinated into it.
And
Even
this
the
aligns-
existence of Harry Potter is
Yeah,
Ever
and
since
this
about 1900,
and this aligns with
1900
the
is
second
about when
coming.
this shit
This is like the body of
maybe you're like
Christ
being
coming back.
graduated into something.
could be.
But
Well, you know, it depends on the religion, but every religion has a different belief, and they're like this. They say that we're in the age of the Antichrist right now, that we're in Annos Satanos, and like, hey, maybe it's true, but that's just a cultural framework that they view things through. And then
All
on the
I
flip
know
side,
is,
the
like,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
we're also
reason
in like
why-
an ascended realm, like an ascended
Yeah.
time where people are accelerating consciousness and expanding more than ever,
Dude.
and like all these things.
You know
So
how
it's
I
like,
know? I'm an asshole, dude. I'm just another regular ass douchebag who just happened to have like this experience, and I was like, I realized things, and this is why I know it's a global thing. This is why I know it's gonna spread because I'm.
Yeah, any asshole can do it.
Exactly.
But how are
I'm
we in
no-
a time when people are ascending more than ever when the literature that they're reading to ascend is literally written 6,000 and 7,000 years ago? So it's like
You're
people.
right,
This is
you're
a
right.
cycle. People are constantly.
They couldn't,
ascending
but the
up.
thing is, that now we can actually understand that better than our ancestors could.
But
because
not
we
better
have-
than the actual Hermetics could, and that was like
yeah, but
thousands
no,
and
but
thousands of
that's
years ago. So
those
it's
were
like not a
actual
new-
wizards. Those were actual
No,
wizards.
they
who
weren't
understood
actual
this.
wizards. They're philosophers.
This
It's
is
not
the
a new.
one-
It's not
this
a
is
new
like-
phenomenon. This is a cyclical thing that's always happening. We're
Well,
not
you can
living
call
in
him a
unique
wizard
times.
because
But we
they're
are
unbelievable.
living in unique
happening
times. We
now.
are.
We're
Look
going
at the
back to
technology
magic.
we
all
have.
have
We
the
have
maps
technology
in
on.
front of us.
What are we doing right
disagree.
now? This is unique.
We all have all the maps in front of us
And,
at
like,
all
this-
times.
to
We
me,
pull out our
hearing it
phone
all-
and we have all the different traditions all in front of us.
Yeah,
This
but
is
people
like-
used to have all the workings of the
one
world
time
in their head
you
all the
have
time.
to
They knew
get-
all the seasons. They knew all farming. They
few
knew all
people did.
medicine.
Yeah, some of them, yeah, some.
I
The
mean,
farmer-
well, division of
I
labor
don't
has
know.
increased over time. So, I mean, people had to know everything you needed to know to sustain your family. You needed to know everything
There's
about the
nothing new
seasons,
under the
farmer's
sun.
almanac, all that stuff.
But
Yeah, I
but-
agree. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah,
But we have things that we never had before.
And we're going back to an era of magic. Like I'm
Look,
sorry,
I
like, that's-
agree.
there's no-
I
there's
agree.
no
I
other
agree
way
that
to
the
put it.
world. I agree that the world
Yeah.
is that things are cyclical. I totally agree with that sentiment. But I feel like the cycle gets bigger with each cycle.
Spiraling.
What I think is
So-
different
so
is like
we're spiraling out.
Yes.
every
It's
new
also
technology.
more rapid and more
better than
violent. I believe in
spiraling down, right?
accelerationism. I do believe it accelerates, and that's the whole point of raising a
I think
frequency.
it's
right?
both.
It
It-
makes-
we're-
it
lineages
speeds up the
are you guys
oscillations.
part of? What lineages are you guys part of?
I'm not a part of
Magic
any
lineage
man.
or
Like,
genetic lineage? What do
all
you
I know
think?
is what I learned, you know, like all I know is what I studied, and I studied like Hermetic tradition, like with the Kabbalion and what is it, the book
Rosicrucian
of
mostly. for
I'm
me.
I'm a
Like,
McKennanite, if that counts.
Right. So this is kind of
Me
an
too.
important point. Is
I just
like
want to
this,
say also martial arts
this-
practice was a huge factor. That was a huge.
guy
We
with
know,
a sword
you
over
like
there.
martial art. You're a stereotype.
That
Right,
is
of
a
course.
safety
Important.
there, so.
Rasta, what were
Being
you
that
saying?
Harsh.
stereotype.
Wait, James had something to say.
well, I'm just trying to say this is like a really important moment to admit to yourself that that you don't know, right? Because it's much better to have that idea, to think that like this culture that we're in right now has everything in front of us and we're all ascending, and that it's the best it's ever been or something, doesn't really track, right?
Oh no.
Best of times and the worst of times.
Why do
I
you say that?
don't think most of us here, if any of us here, have dialogue with Tibetan cave yogis, or Sufis, or
Not nearly enough.
Greek Orthodox.
They,
No, we're not
they
hanging
have
out.
dialogue with us.
I mean, look, if you're going by books, that's okay. That's good, right? Books are good. It's important to have that side of the study. But if you don't have practices that you've been given that are not necessarily in a book, then you don't necessarily understand like what turns them on, right? So like you can get a mantra from a book, right? You can get a prayer from a book, and it might make you feel nice. You have good thoughts about it or something like that, and you may think that's the point of it, and then you'll express that to everyone that, hey, I say this mantra that I got from a book. I say the Gayatri mantra or something, and and then you'll go on to say the purpose of mantra is to center your mind and focus your mind, which is demonstrably untrue, right? So, but if you have interaction with a lineage that has empowerment into that practice, or those prayers or mantras, whatever it is, and you receive empowerment from them, you will see very quickly that it is a completely different story, right?
Well, of course.
These things that people fight to the death over since the beginning of time have so much more to them than what's left over in books that we kind of squabble about based on opinion, right? I don't think any of you in the chat are willing to be burnt at the stake for something you've read in a book, right?
Yeah, right.
But you would maybe
Pretty sure I'd be
feel
willing
that it
to
is
burn
the
this thing.
right thing, that it is really actually justice that you keep your lips closed about a practice that you don't want to die out of the world so nobody can have it, that has brought you actual noetic experience, that you are willing to risk the loss of your life for the sake of that.
I have an experience like that.
No, you haven't. And that's the
No.
important point. And I don't mean that to be rude, because you certainly have the possibility of experience.
They haven't burned at the stake.
I don't mean.
What
I
do you
don't
mean by
that's-
a noetic
you're right, you're right.
experience?
The
I don't wanna-
the severity you're
Most
talking about
people
is
wouldn't
definitely something
know-
alien to me. I wouldn't know anything about that.
You're
Well,
right.
That's
Most
fine.
people-
that's fine. I like that. I love that. That's super humble, and I think that is a step towards the thing. And I think modernly, that's something we have to realize, is that the more we decide that we don't know, that we're not going to add, the vibes. We're not going to add like, feel good drum circle type stuff. That's cool. I love hanging out. I love all that stuff. But it's not that, like it's not that. And it can never be like what your life is now without these things will never lead to these things, right? And that's an important realization, that in order to meet these things, something drastically has to change, right? One thing that I think about, right? is if all of it was wiped from the surface of the planet, right? Would people rediscover these things? I think
Yes.
I do believe that, but I think that would be throughout millennia, right?
Yeah.
Slow process, very slow process.
I think it's part of the entheogenic process. So like there's a factor in all this, which is the psychedelic experience, which I think most people can have something near to what you're describing in these sort of like heavy lifelong practices. And you know, like it's kind of like a window into that. And people, the problem with psychedelics is people have zero way of contextualizing anything they experience, so then they just make whatever up about their experience. And so it's like a glimpse into enlightenment that makes you a little bit mad because you can't actually understand what you're doing. So
let me temper some things that you're saying here, because I do agree, because I think you can find in just about every religion, except for Abrahamic religions, because those are religions of the book, so to speak, right? But every predecessor has a form of shamanism that it comes from, right? Like you have the bone tradition in Tibetan Buddhism, for example, right?
But even the Adam and Eve story is kind of about psychedelics and expansion of consciousness and these sort of things. So
I mean, you've got Kabbalah and stuff. So like,
well, so like here's
there's mystics and esoterics in the book religions too. They're not devoid of
that's not exclusive. So like for example, okay. There's like so much here. This is like why the scholarly part absolutely matters, because the Old Testament, where that comes from, is I mean, that's like Jewish,
Canaanite even.
Right.
Canaanite mysticism that was even beyond just the Abrahamic tradition. Abraham happens, kind of like Muhammad happens, kind of like Jesus happens. There's a thing of a thing of a thing until you get back to like a origin.
I wonder if there's a connection between the Brahmin and Abraham.
Solomon.
Noel would be the person.
Yeah, Noel doesn't like to be asked to do that, but I have seen people connect the son of Noah, Shem, as being the traditions of the Dravidic traditions, and that Abrahamic traditions come after the flood, but like that at one point they were all the same until the flood, and then the division of the sons of Noah.
Let's ask Enoch.
Shem gets India, right? Yeah,
I'm gonna go find
Yeah,
Enoch.
he's got it now.
I think in general, though, a lot of the religions do have a
He's
flood
listening
story.
to us right now.
The flood story is pretty common in most of these religions, right? There's a couple things that are common in most religions. There's like
or mudslides. Mudslides are your thing, though.
There's weird kind of pseudo-intelligent monsters, right? Like people talk about dragons, and they're very much like dinosaurs, except a lot of the time they're kind of intelligent, like birds. Like birds can talk. That there's some sort of like uncanny valley mimicry that's happening in these stories. Also, that there's a flood, but not just a flood, some sort of a worldwide cataclysmic thing, and people are either going into boats or going underground, right? So there's people living underground,
hiding in the mountains,
yeah, things like that. And
mining.
So it's not just Noah who survives, right? And it's not just Noah's animals that make it. There's like a few different stories that are happening at the same time. And even Adamu, if you go back, Adam is supposed to be a crew. Adamu is a genus, or it's like the Sumerian word for like a race or a herd, a flock, something like that.
Tribe.
So tribe. Yeah.
You're saying
Lord of the Rings is more true than we thought.
You're saying
there used to be halflings. There used to be elf-like creatures.
I'm really worried that
Middle Earth is Pangaea.
I'm really worried that JD Payne, the guy who is making the Lord of the Rings Ring of Power series, who happens to be...
Don't say those words.
Well, I didn't want to do it, but he's Mormon, and that freaked me out because
that explains why it's terrible.
What if he's making some weird reference to the Lamanites or something with the orcs? You gotta look into it deeper.
Oh, I gotta watch this now.
That's a good one for another time.
I gotta watch it.
Orcs
Written by J.R.
Bro, I can feel my IQ.
Like she swears by it.
We hit our 2-hour mark. I'm gonna just.
Fight the system, tear down the walls, save the world.
I like the message.
Answer their calls.
love you all. I want to really quickly give a shout out to VBDC because it's been a while since he's been
thank you,
here.
bro.
And
Cheers.
you have a bunch of cool music, and I know that, I know Chris, you've heard his music, but Chris makes music, loves music. And if you love music and you like music videos, then you're going to love VBDC. You're going to go to his Linktree, from there to his YouTube. He's got all kinds of music videos.
Venice Beach Dub Club.
Venice Beach Dub Club. That's why I say VBDC for short, because I think I'm so cool. But it's also the quick way, VBDC, but Venice Beach Dub Club. And he just had 6 months ago, he put out this really rad music video with Dizzy Dustin, and we're working on an AI thing right now, which is, kind of hush hush, but kind of cool.
Gonna have a Xirtus directed AI music video that should be pretty cool.
Can we play any of it?
You can hear. I'll play a little bit of your song if you want. Is that cool?
If it doesn't get
Oh,
your
and I
video
gotta say,
demonetized.
just wait, you guys. I just got a guitar in my truck. I found a guitar. Guitar's in my truck.
Oh, that's cool.
You found it? It was
It's
just
going down.
1 2 1 2. Venice Beach Dub Club, featuring yours truly. Long Beach, California. We're going coast to coast. Yes, sir.
It won't take too long to find out what my love is all about. Hey, it won't take too long to find out what my love is all about.
Hey, so I met her at a club, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
Rome
bass,
on the
right?
deck, so I had.
I'll let you guys get the rest of it with the tape, but you can see, there's a lot of production values going on here. It's actually human beings who know how to play their
We
instruments.
putting in work.
And
We putting in work over here.
have a real Long Beach kind of dub club as well as a Venice Beach dub club kind of vibe. It's dare I say.
Thanks for the shout out, bro. I appreciate that. It's great to be back. Now that the sun is setting earlier, I'm gonna try to come back on Wednesdays, hopefully every Wednesday.
All right. Well,
Yeah, man.
everybody else, we'll see you really soon.
Nice to meet everybody I didn't meet before. Nice to meet all y'all and see all y'all.
Take care of
again.
yourselves.
Thanks for letting me go
Be
over
safe.
time.
Everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
There's what we